Chapter 268. Li Hongyuan took Jingwan in his arms and kissed her. If you like, we can stay here at any time in the future. Don't worry. There will always be a chance. Although Jingwan felt regretful, she didn't have to stay here. Life was not as you wished. Even Prince Jean, who lived freely, also had a time when he couldn't be casual. She felt that she was very lucky. She was very clear about what she should do at any time, and would not lose her direction. There will be a day when you will be able to do as you please, no matter what. Jingwan laughed. The king of hell could be naive sometimes. How could people be really reckless? No matter what, there would be more or less restrictions. Even if the restrictions did not come from the outside, they would come from themselves. Even if one stood at the top of the biological chain and created a civilization, he would not have absolute freedom. If he completely let himself go, he would not have a good end. Do you have anything to do when you go back at this time? Jingwan asked. Li Hongyuan nodded. Yes, I have something to deal with. Or he was waiting for someone to come. Jingwan didn't ask more. She turned back and asked people to pack up and prepare to go back to the capital. Well, all her subordinates were capable people. Therefore, Jingwan just needed to say a word. When they returned to the capital, Jingwan sent people to send the children home at the first time. Of course, they also brought a lot of toys. These were the byproducts of the amusement park that Jingwan asked people to build. It was the result of a temporary idea. However, when Eunuch Mu came back from Great Elder Princess's mansion, he brought back a flower and tree. It was the apology that Jingwan gave to Yu Yao, White Scholar. Because it was a special famous product, it was impossible to forget it. Why did you bring it back? Jingwan fiddled with the flower and asked confusedly. Eunuch Mu stammered. Your Highness, well, His Highness asked people to bring a pot of it back from the farm. When I sent old Master Yu Yao back to Great Elder Princess's mansion just now. Jingwan understood and was once again speechless. Was there a need to go to this extent? Forget it. As long as he was happy, it was just a change of flowers and trees. It didn't matter. Since he cared so much, she would take good care of them in the future. Of course, she couldn't neglect him because of them. Otherwise, the consequences would be even more serious. He wanted to make her happy, please her, and give her things she liked. However, there was a limit to his need for these things. Jingwan could feel it. He had also clearly said that he wanted her to only have eyes for him. However, his actions were not like that. He could clearly put an end to these things from her world. In fact, he wanted her to be happy, so he tried his best to control his possessiveness. Sigh, she's really hard to please. Jingwan's eyes were filled with the purest joy. The next day, Jingwan followed Li Hongyuan into the palace. Since they had been away for such a long time, it was natural for them to enter the palace to pay their respects. Because of Prince Rui's matter, concubine Su was not in a good mood recently. Moreover, the capital city was in a mess. While they were having fun, they were also building large buildings. Anyone who saw them would want to beat them to death. Jingwan found that she began to degenerate with Li Hongyuan. She was familiar with attracting hatred. She didn't feel uneasy or afraid. Instead, she was a little excited. This state was not right. But Jingwan didn't want to restrain herself. Jingwan was already prepared to be scolded. Concubine Su didn't say anything. Except that she was a little tired. She was still a good mother-in-law. She asked about the recent situation in a low voice, and asked what was being built in the farm. Li Hongyuan answered casually. His purpose was to eat, drink, and have fun. He used to play by himself. But now he was going to find some people to play with him. That was all. His attitude was casual, and he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. He didn't care about the outside world, and only cared about himself. He didn't ask about his mother's health, as if he really didn't know that his elder brother was in deep trouble. Jingwan thought about it. If she was in concubine Su's position and met such a vile creature, how would she feel? To be honest, she sympathized with her. In concubine Su's eyes, her son had always been like this. She was clearly angry, but she couldn't get angry at him. Concubine Su looked at her carefree son and calm daughter-in-law, and the anger in her heart grew stronger. How could she be so miserable? She knew her son's character too well. It wasn't that she hadn't thought of turning him around. But she hadn't succeeded. There was even one time when they almost fell out with each other. In the future, she didn't dare to go too far. With his personality, the one who suffered the most was his wife. However, what did that have to do with her? It was fine as long as her son was well. But in fact, this daughter-in-law didn't look like she was having a hard time. She didn't have any makeup on, and her face was white with a hint of red. Her eyebrows were relaxed, and there wasn't the slightest bit of worry. Her complexion was even better than before she got married. Even if she wanted to deceive herself and tell herself that she didn't care from the beginning, because she knew what kind of person her husband was. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that this wasn't the case. No matter how much she didn't care, it wouldn't get better and better. Obviously, there was a problem. There was no other person who could make a married woman feel happy and comfortable, other than her husband. It might be normal for others, but it was definitely abnormal for her son. Could it be that her son liked his wife that much? Liked her so much that he could turn over a new leaf? And all the things he did before they got married were purely because he liked her, wanted to treat her well, and wanted to give her the best? Noble consort Sue quickly denied her own thoughts. It was easy to change mountains and rivers, but it was difficult to change one's nature. It hadn't changed for so many years, so how could he suddenly change his heart? Yuan, go and pay your respects to your imperial father first. This consort will talk to your wife. Li Hongyuan nodded, got up and left. Li Hongyuan only glanced at Jingwan. And Jingwan seemed to feel something, and looked at him with a light smile. Other than that, there was nothing else. She couldn't even see any emotion on his face. Noble consort Sue was a little confused. Was this couple really too good at pretending? Or was this daughter from the Luo family really so low that she could satisfy her son with just good food and drinks? After sending Li Hongyuan away, Jingwan knew that the main show was about to begin. If noble consort Sue wanted to talk to Jingwan, she would really just talk to her. However, that sentence was full of traps, which made her feel tired. If she wasn't careful, she might directly fall into the trap. Jingwan felt that she was no match for such a person. Therefore, she felt that she would be a silly girl who didn't understand anything. She would answer whatever noble consort Sue asked. In short, she just listened to the literal meaning. For example, did she tell her family when she went back to the Luo family last time? Yes, she did. What did her family say? Grandmother said she knew. Was Yuan good to you? Very good. How was he good? This time, Jingwan pretended to be shy and kept silent. Did you have fun in the farmstead? Very happy. Great elder princess trusted you. She had never given you Yao to anyone else. Of course, she was her adopted daughter. Noble consort Sue only felt that her heart was burning. She knew that Jingwan did it on purpose, but she couldn't do anything about it. Although Yuan used to be a bit dissolute, he obviously became a lot better after marrying you. At least, he didn't get any women in the mansion. I'm very gratified. It would have been better if she hadn't said it. Now that she said it, she suddenly realized that her son hadn't doted on a woman for a long time. Noble consort Sue lowered her head to drink tea, hiding the darkness in her eyes. Is that so? Jingwan frowned. It's said that rumors can't be trusted. After all, I've never seen such a woman around Prince. Prince used to have such a bad reputation. Could it be that someone deliberately slandered him? Jingwan would never admit that she had blocked someone's peach blossom. You're right. People's hearts are unpredictable. I should have thought of this. Noble consort Sue frowned. Don't worry, Your Highness. It doesn't matter. As long as we know that Prince is well, it's fine. Jingwan comforted her. Noble consort Sue glanced at her. That's right. Noble consort Sue almost had someone send her some tea, and she lost interest in talking. On the other hand, when Li Hongyuan went to the imperial study to see Le Qingdi, he ran into the imperial guard's commander, Yu Zhongqing. He was still that taciturn man who was loyal to his duty. However, there was a faint green around his eyes, and they seemed to be covered with a layer of shadow. Under normal circumstances, Li Hongyuan might have just assumed that he didn't sleep well. However, after experiencing his past life, he could tell at a glance that it was the result of experiencing deep pain. Yu Zhongqing was still on his old path. Yu Zhongqing's eyes flashed when he saw Li Hongyuan. It seemed like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he only greeted him. Li Hongyuan turned a deaf ear to him and walked straight into the imperial study without stopping. Yu Zhongqing lowered his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. Only he knew the turmoil in his heart and the bone-piercing pain that only he knew. Some things echoed in his mind over and over again. In the end, his heart calmed down and he made a decision. Lu Qingdi was naturally unhappy with the carefree and happy Li Hongyuan. After all, his son, who he valued the most, made mistakes one after another. The competition between his sons became more and more obvious. Lu Qingdi was angry when he saw Li Hongyuan. There were a lot of things to do, so he didn't have the time to reprimand him. Therefore, he sent him away with a few words. As expected, Li Hongyuan left very confidently. At the door, Yu Zhongqing watched Li Hongyuan leave. Li Hongyuan went to the Jade Essence Palace again. Compared to when he left before, there were a few more people here. Princess Lu brought her 2 daughters with her. She looked good, but that was all. Her makeup was very heavy, far worse than Jingwan's. She took noble consort Su's order to bring the children into the palace, to talk with her, and relieve her boredom. Princess Lu knew that her grandson was actually a thorn in noble consort Su's heart. She would be even more depressed if she saw her 2 granddaughters. However, noble consort Su had to see them for her own image. Princess Lu had to take them into the palace, even if she was worried that the children would be negatively affected. It was said that children were perceptive. In fact, they had already felt that noble consort Su didn't really like them. So they were more and more restrained in front of noble consort Su. Noble consort Su felt that Princess Lu didn't raise the children well. She was the royal granddaughter, but she was so narrow-minded. Princess Lu had difficulties but couldn't speak. Today was fine. Jingwan actually liked children. Instead of sitting there, she might as well find something to do and play with the 2 children. Of course, it was not the first time for the 2 children to see her. Because Jingwan had always been kind to them, they naturally liked the 6th aunt very much. When Jingwan asked them questions, they answered obediently with sweet smiles. From this point of view, Princess Lu raised the children very well, and didn't let them be corrupted prematurely. 6th sister-in-law likes children so much, hurry up and have one yourself. Princess Lu said with a smile. Jingwan's temper, compared to them, was simply straightforward. She even offended her. However, Princess Lu didn't have any bad feelings towards Jingwan. She even envied her. At least, she would never be able to do what Jingwan did. She had too many restrictions and too many scruples. There was no turning back. The matter of children depends on fate. Jingwan smiled. She was using contraception now. How could she have children? Moreover, in Jingwan's view, someone asked her to use contraception not entirely because of her age, nor was it because it was not suitable to have children now. The most important point was that he didn't want to have a burden to disturb their 2-person world so early. You and Prince Jean are both in good health. I believe that you will have children soon. Maybe you are already pregnant now. Prince Jean got married late. These years, Mufei has been looking forward to it. Mufei will definitely like the child you give birth to. Jingwan smiled but didn't say anything. Noble consort Su might look forward to anything, but she probably never looked forward to Prince Jin's child. Well, Princess Lu seemed to have unintentionally stabbed noble consort Su. Jingwan actually wanted to see noble consort Su's expression at this time. Thinking about it, she gave up. For this kind of person, who knew if she would guess something just by looking at her. What are you talking about? Li Hongyuan came in. She said that Nyang Nyang is looking forward to Prince's child. Obviously he had heard it. What was he pretending for? Jingwan smiled on the surface, but she rolled her eyes in her heart. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows. His eyes swept over Jingwan's belly. Then when does Wang Fei plan to give birth to this prince? Annoying. Jingwan looked at him coquettishly. In fact, she had goosebumps all over her body. Li Hongyuan smiled unconcernedly and looked at Princess Lu. 3rd sister-in-law is also here. Why don't I see 3rd imperial brother? Princess Lu squatted. Your 3rd imperial brother has something to do. He has always envied you for being so carefree. That's true. He works himself to death all day long to find guilt. Your sixth aunt built a playground for you children to play in. When you have time, let your Mufei take you to play. You don't need to tell sixth uncle. Li Hongyuan turned his head and said. The two little girls' eyes brightened. Obviously, they were very interested. Thank you, sixth uncle. It's fine if you're messing around, but you also bring an uncertain child. If you teach Ben Gong's good grandson bad, Ben Gong won't forgive you. Noble consort Su pretended to be angry and pointed at him with a little pampering. Jingwan felt that it was enough to scold her indirectly, but she pretended not to hear it. In that case, forget it. Mufei, you have to know that it's rare for a Ken to be generous. Yua, https://www. bicken.com/11/11807/6653443. HTML. Click here to report an error. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com mobile edition. Chapter 269. No matter what, Li Hongyuan wouldn't ask about noble consort Su's feelings. Although he was a filial son, he was also a careless man. He didn't have such a sensitive mind. How could he know what a woman was thinking? If his father found out that he was guessing what a woman was thinking, he would really be beaten up. Then, wouldn't it be fine if he didn't let his father know? Li Hongyuan indicated that if he really did that, he would definitely let his father know. As for Jingwan, she was his wife. How could others compare to her? It was obvious that Li Hongyuan's nerves were always the thickest when facing noble consort Su. Perhaps she had long been accustomed to her son being such a person. So noble consort Su didn't think too much about it. Why did you turn back so quickly? Imperial father is busy with government affairs and has no time to pay attention to this son. This son wants to take a walk around the imperial garden. But I'm afraid that I'll meet one or two people who want to recommend themselves. The unlucky one will still be this son. It's better not to get involved in such a troublesome place, Li Hongyuan said indifferently. Noble consort Su was rather speechless. Speaking of which, whose fault was it? Although in the end, and it had been so long, was it really good for a man to hold a grudge like this? That was just an accident. How could there be a second time? Yuan, you should know your place. This son isn't well behaved enough? If Imperial Mother thinks so, then this son will directly move to the manor to live. Yuan, aren't you hurting Imperial Mother's heart by saying such words? Noble consort Su said with some sadness. Li Hongyuan frowned, as if he didn't know which sensitive nerve of noble consort Su had been touched. If this son said something wrong, Imperial Mother can just say it. Noble consort Su was speechless. Perhaps this son of hers really didn't have any superfluous thoughts. Speaking of which, this son of hers had always said whatever he wanted to say, and did whatever he wanted to do. He never hid anything, nor did he know what it meant to swallow his anger, let alone have a sense of propriety. Perhaps it wasn't that he didn't know, but that it had become a habit after a long time. He was used to others revolving around him, and thinking for others was the biggest joke in the world. Even though he knew this, he still took it seriously. He was simply asking for trouble. It's not that Yuan is in the wrong, it's just that I've misunderstood. As you said, your imperial father has indeed been busy recently. You know very well what his attitude towards you is. If you really want to stay in the manor for a long time, he will be sad, so I'm just... Mother, I understand. Imperial concubine Su nodded in satisfaction. On one hand, Jingwan was having a hard time holding back her laughter because of a certain someone's pretense. On the other hand, she really didn't know what to say about noble consort Su's attitude towards Li Hongyuan. Did noble consort Su really treat her son as an adult? Or perhaps it could only be said that a certain someone's acting obedient was too successful, leaving a deep impression in many people's minds? Then they chatted casually for a while. Li Hongyuan told noble consort Su that he sent something into the palace and asked her to deal with it as she saw fit. Noble consort Su said that he was a good son and filial child. In the end, Li Hongyuan regretfully said that he originally wanted to accompany his mother for dinner, but his sister-in-law was here, so he didn't want to join in the fun. Before noble consort Su said anything, he turned back and told Jingwan that he hadn't eaten anything for a while. After going back, he asked her to remember to ask someone to prepare it. When he turned back again, he saw noble consort Su, who wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Mother, is there anything else? Noble consort Su choked again. If it was only Princess Lu alone, she could still send her away. But with the two little ones, she couldn't do that. It was natural for her son to avoid suspicion. How could she say no to such a sensible son? She could make Jingwan stay. But as a good mother, how could she make her son stay when his daughter-in-law was here? However, Jingwan pretended to be stupid and perfunctory. She would only make herself angry if she stayed. She waved her hand. It's okay. Be careful on the way back. Yes, I'll take my leave first. I'll take my leave. Jingwan left the imperial palace with Li Hongyuan. At the gate of the imperial palace, they met Yu Zhongqing, the commander of the imperial guards. Jingwan didn't think much of it at first. As the leader of the imperial guards, it was not strange for him to appear outside the imperial harem. Li Hongyuan's eyes were a little meaningful. He had expected Yu Zhongqing to appear. When Yu Zhongqing saw them, he greeted them respectfully. Then he looked at Li Hongyuan. It seemed that he had something to say. Maybe it was because of the occasion, so he didn't speak. Li Hongyuan didn't stop. He reached out and took Jingwan's hand, and they got into the carriage. Jingwan was a little confused by Li Hongyuan's sudden action. She realized something. She glanced at Yu Zhongqing and didn't struggle. However, the guards at the gate immediately lowered their heads. On the other hand, Yu Zhongqing looked at their backs. His eyes flashed, and the shadow in his eyes dissipated. There was even a hint of relief. In the carriage, Jingwan finally couldn't help but ask, is it really okay for Ayuan to do this? What's the problem? Even if she noticed something, what can she do? She won't fall out with me. Right now, she still needs me to help her consolidate her position. To me, it doesn't matter whether she's here or not. If she's wrong first, then it's even better. I can't be bothered to continue dealing with her. All right, you have the right to be willful. You have the final say. Why is official Yu looking for you? Li Hongyuan's face instantly darkened. Wanwan is quite observant. Jingwan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hey, that's enough. Although the other party's behavior isn't very clear, coupled with your actions, it's worth thinking about. All right, this official Yu saw clearly what happened on the way to the Summer Palace last year. He doesn't know everything about you, but he knows half of it. Looking for you at this time, he's preparing to surrender. Li Hongyuan's expression didn't improve much, but there were no signs of him continuing to go crazy. Who knows what he wants to do? We'll know when he comes to find us. Then, Yuan's actions just now really reminded him. It's nothing. Li Hongyuan interrupted her neither lightly nor heavily. He looked at Jingwan without blinking. The threat was too obvious. Yes. Whatever you say, Yuan. Jingwan replied with a smile. She didn't know what to say about this temperament of his. Li Hongyuan's face darkened again. Jingwan hurriedly went up to him, wrapped her arms around his neck, and sealed it with a kiss. Li Hongyuan naturally wouldn't miss the benefits that were delivered to his doorstep. The people outside the carriage, because they were too astute, simply had an indescribable rumination. Especially those who didn't have a wife. Usually, they couldn't easily go to the brothel, and the shadow guards didn't even think about it. Returning to Jin Wangfu, 4 days later, Jingwan made a trip to the Luo family, under the pretext of being concerned about her cousin's marriage. In fact, in the imperial family, it was really the first time that someone like Jingwan returned to her maternal home as frequently as she did. However, just as Li Hongyuan said on the day of the marriage, this matter, he was talking about the rules. As a daughter-in-law of the imperial family, Jingwan should be aware of this aspect. Unfortunately, in this aspect, she resolutely implemented the after-marriage, follow the husband's orders. When returning to the Wangfu, a little girl who was a few years old suddenly ran out chasing a kitten. If it wasn't for the fact that Jingwan's carriage wasn't fast enough, they might have bumped into the little girl. The guards tried to stop them, but they couldn't stop the nimble kitten. In the process of being chased, The kitten actually jumped onto Jingwan's carriage. Probably no one thought that it would be like this. Not to mention the guards. Even the servant girls couldn't help but panic. If this little beast were to hurt Wang Fei, they wouldn't be able to afford it even if they lost their lives. Wang Fei, are you all right? She anxiously asked. At the same time, Gong Momo quickly lifted the curtain. Rest assured I'm fine. Jingwan and Gong Momo looked at each other. Gong Momo, who was familiar with her, only needed one look to know that there was something else going on. The kitten's wild nature still existed. But after all, it was a kitten and its strength was limited. Jingwan quickly reached out and pulled the silk cloth on the table to cover the kitten. Then she pinched the back of the kitten's neck and lifted it up. It was only in this limited space that she was able to catch it so smoothly. If it was outside, Jingwan really wasn't sure. Compared to Jingwan's great indifference, the guards and servant girls were relieved. The owner of the kitten, the little girl, still hoped to get the kitten back. However, the expression of the woman who chased after her changed greatly. She quickly pulled the little girl to kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Her entire body was trembling. It was obvious that she was really frightened. And the onlookers were also increasing. Those who saw the whole process and knew that it was the carriage of Jin Wangfu. All of them broke out in a cold sweat. However, when they knew that the person inside was Jin Qin Wangfei, and not Jin Wangfu, many people secretly felt very lucky. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653446. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikaga mobile reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 270. Jingwan looked at the kitten in her hands. It looked like an ordinary field cat with clean fur. Even so, she didn't hold it in her arms. He wasn't sure if it was what he expected, and he didn't know what kind of danger this cat might pose. As a member of the royal family, he had to be on guard against everything. This was something that made him feel rather helpless. Well, it wasn't just the imperial family's problem. Ordinary people's families could also cause trouble. In the inner chambers of some rich and powerful families, there were dramas that were comparable to palace intrigues. If one wasn't careful, they could get hurt or fall ill. If it was serious, their reputation would be ruined, or they might even lose their lives. Nanny, what's going on outside? Jingwan asked softly. Nanny Gong gave her a concise account of what had happened. Jingwan asked the servants to hang up the curtains. She sat upright on the bed and looked at the guards who were ready for battle. They drew their swords and looked at the adult and child on the ground. Perhaps the child was influenced by the adults, but it wasn't as fearless as it was at the beginning. Nanny, take this kitten and return it to the little girl. It's not a big deal. Let's forget about it. The princess is kind, Nanny Gong said. Jingwan smiled. She really didn't think that it was a big deal. However, in this era, when a person in a higher position did something good, it was called benevolence. When a person in a middle position did something, it was called kindness. When a person in a lower position, it was very likely that they had bad intentions. This was the huge difference brought by status. It was completely different from her previous life. Nanny Gong took the kitten and walked to the two people. She handed it over. You must be careful in the future. Today you met our princess. If it was another noble, I don't know what would happen. Even if it's not a noble, it's easy to bump into people if you run around like this. It's not good to hurt yourself. Yes. Nanny is right. Thank you, Nanny. Thank you, princess. Alright, you can leave first. Nanny Gong waved her hand. Nanny, please wait a moment. It was my niece who bumped into princess's carriage. Princess is kind and doesn't care about it, but we can't be rude. This humble woman has nothing else but a few kittens. One of them is a Western cat that is exceptionally obedient and beautiful. Perhaps Your Highness doesn't lack such a small thing. Please take it as an apology. Your Highness, please accept it. The woman's voice was slightly raised. Clearly, she was saying this for Jingwan to hear. Who was Granny Gong? With her sharp eyes, she naturally saw the subtle changes in the woman's expression. She narrowed her eyes slightly. I hope Princess can accept it. Otherwise, I'll feel uneasy. Nanny, since that's the case, let her send the cat to the prince's mansion later. Jingwan's voice sounded at the right time. Many thanks, Princess Consort. Many thanks, Princess Consort. The woman was filled with gratitude. Let's return to the Fu. The people of Jinqinwang Fu, even if Wang Ye was present, they still treated Jingwan's words as the first rule. Of course, Wang Ye's special words were an exception. However, they knew that according to Wang Ye's care for Wang Fei, this kind of situation was very rare. It probably only happened when there was a dispute between the husband and wife. Therefore, they would naturally listen to what Jingwan said. But when they returned, they might be punished. After all, it was their dereliction of duty that allowed the cat to jump into the carriage. Fortunately, nothing happened. If someone had ulterior motives, they couldn't absolve themselves from the blame, even if they died 10,000 times. They couldn't say that they didn't do anything wrong, just because there were no serious consequences. When Jingwan's carriage left, the onlookers discussed animatedly. They couldn't help but think of the bet on Jingwan. At that time, many people had the mentality of watching a play. After all, it had nothing to do with them. But now looking at it, Jinqinwang Fei is a good person. Good people should be rewarded. The onlookers agreed. Only marrying a person like Jinqinwang. In the end, she married the wrong man. That woman hurriedly left with the little girl. While no one was paying attention, they turned left and right, and quickly left the area. The woman appeared to be very careful. While walking, she looked left and right. It was fine if they didn't pay attention. But once they were noticed, it would definitely make people feel that there was something wrong. In fact, there were indeed people who noticed. To be exact, they were being followed from the moment they left the scene. Since there were people acting suspiciously, they naturally wouldn't ignore them. After turning a few streets, the surroundings became quieter and quieter. It was obvious that the surrounding area was where ordinary people lived. The two of them turned into a secluded alley and entered one of the houses. A man stuck his head out to take a look, then quickly turned around and closed the door. At the entrance of the alley, two men in ordinary clothes walked in while chatting. No matter if it was their clothes or their words and actions, they didn't look the least bit strange as they passed by the door of the small courtyard. The woman, who was still calm before, when she entered the house and faced the other people in the house, her face paled and her legs went soft. Another good old woman hurriedly reached out to support her. What happened, ah? Could it be that things didn't go well? The other people also had nervous expressions. If things didn't go well, they didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be. They hurriedly brought out the little girl who called her mother. The woman panted a few times. Things went well, but this little beast ran into Jinqinwang Fei's carriage. Once these words came out, everyone's expression changed. If things went wrong, they would all die. Although the person came back safely and was right in front of their eyes. But thinking about the matter made them fearful and fearful. What's the specific situation? Quickly say it clearly. The woman narrated the matter in full detail. Fortunately, Jinqinwang Fei has a good temper. If she met someone like Jinqinwang Fei, even if she didn't die, she would lose half her life. Unconsciously, beads of sweat had already seeped out of her forehead. Indeed, at present, it seems that things are developing in the opposite direction. The rest depends on whether this cat can truly be sent out. Then, who is going to send this cat? The woman asked. Clearly, the previous matter had already exhausted all her courage. Sister-in-law, don't worry, we won't ask you to go again. The previous matter, because you are the most suitable, we will take care of the following matters. The man who closed the door said. That's good, that's good. The woman patted her chest. You've worked hard today, go rest. That cat, this old woman will personally send it. The old woman regained her composure, with determination and perseverance. Mother, you don't need to say anything, Koexan died so miserably. As her mother, I have to do something for her. The old woman couldn't stop her tears from falling. At the same time, there was unspeakable hatred and ruthlessness on her face. I only have this one biological child. I lost half my life to give birth to her. That bunch of beasts. That bunch of beasts. Mother, it's all our fault. We didn't protect little sister. It's all our fault. The man beside her was also extremely remorseful. No, it's not your fault. It happened so suddenly no one thought. It's just mother. Is it really okay to choose Jin Qinhuang? The other man asked hesitantly. Since it was your second brother's choice, naturally it's not wrong. Now that we've come to this step, there's no room for retreat. Jin Qinhuang's fierce reputation is outside. No matter how much of it is faked, he's definitely not a good character. His matters, if we reveal even a single word, including second brother, we will all die without a burial place. Isn't it better for a person like Jin Qinhuang? As long as you agree to us in the end, it will definitely be as we wish, and there won't be any accidents. Since the matter had been decided, there wouldn't be anyone who wavered. The next day, the old woman hugged the pure white cat with purple eyes and was about to go out. Grandmother, are we really going to give Zitong to that Wang Fei? The little girl asked reluctantly. It's us who offended Wang Fei. Naturally we should make amends. Darling, don't you think so? The little girl was obviously well educated. She looked at the cat with eager eyes, but didn't snatch it, nor did she cry or make a fuss. Giving the cat was just an excuse. In the end, she didn't really need to give it away. However, this matter wasn't settled, so it wasn't good to tell her. The guards who followed Jingwan out, because of Jingwan's plea, finally each received 5 lashes as a warning to others. This was something that Jingwan knew. These 5 lashes were something that she couldn't cut off. Li Hongyuan could indulge her in most things, but there were some things that couldn't be discussed. Wan, if you say it again, then each person will receive 500 lashes. Jingwan didn't know the concept of 500 lashes, but it was certain that they would be beaten to a pulp. It was also certain that they would lose their lives. Jingwan obediently stopped bargaining. Yuan, you can't say one thing in front of the other. Now that you said 5 lashes, I'll increase it when I give the order. Li Hongyuan coldly snorted. Obviously he had this plan. Does Yuan have the heart to lie to me? Jingwan was now getting along with Li Hongyuan more and more smoothly and naturally. When it was necessary to be gentle, she should be gentle. When it was necessary to be gentle, she should be gentle. When it was necessary to be gentle, she should be gentle. When it was necessary to be firm, she should be firm. And when it was necessary to be firm, she should be firm. You also don't like to pretend to be obedient, right? Okay, this prince means what he says. If I say 5 lashes, then I will give you 5 lashes. Irrelevant people are worth your trouble. Jingwan smoothly suppressed a certain someone who was about to change his face. When the cat was delivered, Jingwan was reading a book, and Li Hongyuan was lying on her lap taking a nap. He looked like a quiet and handsome man. Jingwan didn't need Gong Mama to remind her. She knew that it wasn't a simple delivery of the cat. Perhaps the person she was waiting for had finally arrived. Jingwan gently lifted his head and slowly moved it away. She put a pillow under his head and covered him with a blanket. Only then did she quietly leave. Unexpectedly, Li Hongyuan watched her leave. Wan wanted to help him as much as she could, and he didn't want Jingwan to become a canary in a cage. When Jingwan saw the person, she wasn't surprised. It wasn't the one at noon. She looked at the cat that was presented. At this time, its claws had been carefully trimmed. Its pink and tender feet looked harmless and cute. Jingwan felt that it was a little pitiful. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653449. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikugo mobile reading website mbicken.com. Chapter 271. The kitten was placed beside Jingwan. Jingwan used her hand to stroke the kitten from head to tail. Inexplicably, she felt like she was stroking someone's fur. Princess consort, do you like this cat? The old woman was a bit cautious and reserved. She also had the indescribable excitement of meeting a noble person. It was very suitable for an ordinary woman. Jingwan nodded and said with a smile, "Auntie, what is your surname?" She had the intention to chat with the old woman. This commoner's husband's surname is Zhou. The old woman also had the intention to continue chatting with Jingwan. The old man is already gone. That old thing was so cruel. He even took his eldest son away. It's fine if he made this old woman a widow, but he also made her send off her own child. Saying this, her eyes couldn't help turning red. My condolences. Other than this, Jingwan didn't know what else to say. The old woman wiped the corners of her eyes. This is something that happened many years ago. I've let Princess Consort see a joke. This commoner originally had 4 sons and 1 daughter. But the one who offended the Princess Consort this morning was the eldest daughter of the 3rd son, who is also the eldest granddaughter. That woman is the eldest daughter-in-law. And speaking of her, she is a pitiful person. When the eldest son was alive, they didn't have a son or a daughter. Her maternal family only had her brother and sister-in-law, and they were all harsh people. They couldn't bear for her to go back and suffer, so they wanted her to remarry, but she wasn't willing. All these years, she has served this commoner without any complaints or regrets. The 3rd son is still all right. He and his wife already have a son and a daughter, so it can be considered complete. Jingwan secretly thought it's here. This should be the reason. Princess Consort, you don't know. Our family has 5 children. Only our daughter was born to this commoner and the old man. The other 4 sons were all adopted. This commoner married him for many years and didn't have a child. I don't know how much medicine I ate and how many Buddhas I prayed to, but there was no result. He was an honest and filial person. He resisted the pressure of his parents and didn't divorce this commoner. Fortunately, he was the eldest son, so this commoner's heart didn't feel so guilty. After the 2 elders passed away, the brothers separated from the family. The other brothers called him unfilial and kicked us out of the family with almost nothing. We moved away from our original residence. The old man said, "It doesn't matter if we don't have a child. We can just adopt one." So we had the eldest son. He was originally a beggar. Once he started, there was no end. The 2nd son was kidnapped. After he escaped, he met us. But at that time he fell ill. When he woke up, he didn't remember his original home. The 3rd child had no parents and was treated harshly by his uncle and aunt. As for the 4th child, he was originally a posthumous child. When his mother gave birth to him, she died in childbirth. However, I never thought that I would get pregnant 3 years later. I was so happy that I was extremely careful about the children in my belly and naturally neglected them. However, they were all very sensible. The older one took care of the younger one and never let me worry about the housework. In fact, in order to let me eat better, the older one and the younger one secretly went out to work. At that time, they were 13 and 11. I felt that with these children, even if they were not my biological children, my life was worth it. Recalling the past, the old woman was unable to control herself. There was one time when the old man went out to work and saved a person. Who would have thought that the person was coincidentally 2nd brother's biological father? Naturally, we were happy that 2nd brother was able to come home. In order to thank our family, 2nd brother only changed his surname and did not use his original name. Although 2nd brother's family was not high officials or nobles, to us, they were already too high to reach. Their family, on the other hand, were kind people. We were not willing to move to their city, but we still sent a lot of things to them every year. However, one year, we suddenly lost contact with them. We were worried, so we asked the older one to look for them. The result was that something happened to their family, and the whole family was gone. We did not know the details. During that time, our family was very depressed. Then there was a robbery. The old man was beaten. The older one went to reason with them, but in the end, he was beaten to death. It was simply a disaster. The 3rd child was schemed against and owed a debt. Then there was a natural disaster. It was clear that they did not want to give us a way out. My daughter's name was Kuexian. She was very beautiful, but she was taken away by the bad guys. She was only 11 years old. It was simply heartless. Just when the family was in despair, the younger one came back. He was a good child, but he seemed to have changed into a different person. He was a man of few words. He immediately went to save my daughter. Although the result was not the worst, but he was one step too late. From then on, Koexien was very afraid of men. Other than the younger one who saved her, no one else, including her other brothers and father, could get close to her. At that time, her father was still lying in bed, and his condition was getting worse and worse. At that time, the younger one promised that he would wait for Koexien to grow up and marry her as his wife. As long as she does not despise him for being a loner. Speaking of which, how could she despise him for being a loner? But what happened to him that made him like this? He had a fiancée, but before the wedding, his fiancée suddenly went into mourning, and the wedding was postponed. When we asked him about his fiancée, he only said that the engagement was annulled. Jingwan listened quietly. This could be considered as solving the mystery of why the Imperial Guard's great commander was not married, even though he was almost 30 years old. After the old man passed away, the younger one did not know what happened to his family. He was afraid that he would implicate us. That's why he seldom contacted us, and he was very secretive. These few years, he had been climbing up the social ladder, but he treated us and Koexien the same. We came to Beijing a year ago, and we wanted to help them get married. But now the situation is not optimistic. The younger one is in a special position, and he is worried that it will be dangerous for us to be in public. He wants to wait for 1 or 2 years, until everything is settled. We all trust him, and Koexien has been waiting happily to be his second brother's wife. But, speaking up to this point, the old woman could not hold it in anymore and cried. When faced with this kind of situation, no one could persuade her, especially when she was facing a stranger for the first time. Of course, this was a special case. Koexien only went to the embroidery house once. She usually goes there, so there is nothing to be worried about. But a few days ago, she did not come back. When we found her, it was already 2 days later. My daughter, she died so miserably. There was not a single part of her body that was not injured. Her eyes were wide open before she died. She died with grievances. Those bastards. The old woman covered her face and cried until her body trembled. Jingwan did not say anything and only asked someone to fetch water. After the old woman vented her emotions, she let her wash her face. After the old woman calmed down, she looked at Jingwan apologetically. I have made a fool of myself in front of Princess Consort. Auntie, don't mind it. This is human nature. This was the most tragic thing in a person's life. Losing one's father at a young age, losing one's husband at a middle age, and losing one's son at an old age. Jingwan was not sure if she was the first one, but the last two were the portrayal of her misery. Princess Consort is merciful to allow this commoner to talk nonsense. Princess Consort, you should know what this commoner means, right? The old woman said eagerly. Jingwan did not pretend to be stupid and directly nodded. There are not many people who know about our prince's real situation, and these people are all working for our prince. Let me guess. Auntie, you are talking about your second son. Is it the current commander of the Imperial Guards, official Yu? Although it was not far from the truth, she still had to verify it. She did not want to make a big mistake in the end. Both of them said things that they thought the other party understood. But in fact, it was not the same. That would be fun. Although the possibility was low, she still had to be prepared. It wasn't as if there had never been a case where the entire plan had collapsed due to some insignificant reasons. The old woman nodded. Yes. Everyone in the capital knows that official Yu does not have any relatives. They only know that he is the second son based on his name. But it turns out that there is such a story behind it. The second son is the second son in our family, but he is the eldest son in the Yu family. But in order to match his name, the Yu family spread the news that he had an elder brother who died young. So it's like that. The Yu family is a family that is loyal and affectionate. But to be able to raise official Yu to be such a dignified person, your Zhou family cannot go unnoticed. Princess Consort is too kind. Her own child was praised and even her own family was recognized. Naturally, she was happy. Although it is very presumptuous, can you tell me who the other party is? Although Jingwan said it in a tactful manner, the old woman understood. The second son's identity is limited, so it is not convenient to investigate some things. But there is one person whose identity is confirmed, and that is Prince Rui's brother-in-law. The last sentence was filled with endless hatred. If the person in question was in front of her, she might skin him alive and drink his blood. At the mention of Prince Rui's brother-in-law, Jingwan thought of the flower competition at the flower market last year. Was it the same person? If it was, it could only be said that this kind of person was beyond the scope of a hedonistic son. Killing a good girl to death was not something that could be brushed aside, just because he was rich and powerful, and spent all day eating, drinking, and fooling around. His father was a cabinet elder, who was busy fighting for power, and neglected the education of his children. Even if he ascended to the sky, the Liu family would not be able to stand in the clouds for long. Jingwan stroked the kitten, then picked it up and handed it back to the old woman. Auntie, take this little guy back. I think your granddaughter will like it very much. I won't take it away from her. Princess consort, you. The old woman's face suddenly changed. Don't misunderstand. I will talk to His Highness. Moreover, Lord Yu is the commander of the Imperial Guards. Many people want to win him over. Now that he has delivered himself to His Highness's door, His Highness has no reason to refuse. I don't like those people who commit crimes. I will do my best to facilitate a win-win situation. Thank you, Princess Consort. Thank you, Princess Consort. The old woman knelt down and kowtowed with tears of gratitude. Get up. Jingwan hurriedly reached out to help her up. This humble woman has a presumptuous request. Can His Highness help me find out who this person is? Okay. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/6653452. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicon.com. Bicon.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 272. The old woman seemed to have said a lot, but because she got into the main topic from the beginning, she didn't spend much time on it. However, this was the prince's mansion after all. Usually, no one would come here. Even if it was an old woman who did not attract much attention, if someone came here on a whim, who knew what kind of trouble it would cause? The living king of hell would definitely be fine. It was just that before the Zhou family could help, it would not be good if the Zhou family got into trouble first. Before leaving, Jingwan told the old woman, Auntie, after you go back, don't do unnecessary things with the family. However, regarding your daughter's matter, fight for it. Other than that, just pretend that you don't know anything and don't have anyone backing you up. If someone wants to use money to settle the matter, just accept it when you think it's enough. Don't do unnecessary things and hurt yourself. Leave the rest to us. No matter who it is, no matter how involved they are in the murder, one day they will pay a heavy price. The old woman was a little agitated, but she suppressed it in the end. However, her expression didn't look good. This commoner doesn't want their stinky money. My daughter's life, my daughter's reputation. Auntie, don't be agitated. Listen to me first. The money itself isn't wrong. It's the people who use it that are wrong. If you feel uncomfortable with the money, use it to help people in need. After all, the other party had killed someone, so they would definitely feel guilty. If you don't accept it, they will think that you won't let it go. In that case, no one knows what they will do. Perhaps it is because of you that Lord Yu is suppressing his anger and pain. If something happens to all of you, he will no longer have any restraints. What will he do? Even if he is highly valued by the emperor, his position is destined to be a lonely official. Then, can he wrestle with Prince Rui? The old woman's lips trembled and tears flashed in her eyes. Princess consort, you are right. My daughter is already gone. I can't let my son and the whole family be lost. At the same time, she thought that her second son might have thought of the key points, but he didn't say anything. Was he trying his best to protect them now? It's good that you can think it through. I know that when it comes to this kind of thing, it's easy for others to say, but you can't experience that kind of pain. You can't be rational just because you want to. Even if you do something irrational, it's understandable. In fact, you are much stronger than the average person. You are also a mother worthy of respect. Princess consort is indeed princess consort. You say different things. However, this commoner really doesn't dare to accept it. Jingwan didn't say anything more. She ordered someone to send the old woman out. She must ensure her safety and eliminate any possible danger. Of course, there was no need for Jingwan to say anything. When Jingwan nodded to accept Yu Zhongqing's surrender, and accepted the Zhou family, Li Hongyuan had basically taken their lives. Jingwan's mood was not relaxed. No matter what, Zhou Kurson deserved sympathy. However, this was something that she had never seen before. In her previous life, she knew more about this kind of thing. In her previous life, the feudal society was conservative. Even if a woman died tragically, as long as she was defiled, the woman and her family would not be pitted. That was why not many people knew about this kind of thing. In Jingwan's previous life, she had seen a lot of news about this kind of thing. When people first heard about it, they might be angry, but after a while they might be numb. She was suspecting her husband's role in this matter. Her understanding of Li Hongyuan was still far from 100%. However, from what she knew, she was sure that he would do such a thing to get Yu Zhongqing's support. After all, his situation was special. If he wanted to ascend the throne, he had to either force the emperor to abdicate or kill all his brothers. When Emperor Li Qingdi only had one son, even if he was a Japanese, he would not give the throne to an outsider. The reputation of these two paths was not good. However, as long as it was controlled properly, the casualties of the first path could be minimized. Yu Zhongqing was an indispensable part of this plan. After all, he was the head of the imperial palace's security. Taking him down was equivalent to taking down all the gates of the imperial palace, without sacrificing a single soldier. Fighting for the throne was tough. The road was full of thorns and blood. It was inevitable to use some cruel means. If he had to do it, as long as it didn't involve himself or hurt his loved ones, Jingwan wouldn't say anything. If it was necessary, she was even willing to do some things for him. If it wasn't necessary, she hoped that he would be merciful. Since she had her suspicions, Jingwan decided to verify it. Otherwise, no matter what the truth was, there would be a knot in her heart. Li Hongyuan had already stood up and was leisurely flipping through a book. When he heard the noise, he raised his head and looked at Jingwan. Finished? Seeing Jingwan's strange expression, he asked, "What, is there a problem?" He waved his hand and asked Jingwan to come to his side. Jingwan didn't refuse. She sat beside him and asked him about her suspicions. Li Hongyuan was not angry. It was better to ask everything than to keep it in. I know about Yu Zhongqing's background, and I'm sure my brothers know about it as well. It's just that they don't know about the Zhou family. To be precise, almost no outsiders knew that the Yu family's eldest son had been missing for several years. Yu Zhongqing's father had kept this matter a secret very well, and even raised another person to live in the Yu family. When I sent people to investigate his background, I was almost fooled. It's because of this that no one paid attention to Yu Zhongqing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to hide the Zhou family so well. In fact, if it weren't for his previous life, Li Hongyuan wouldn't have known about Yu Zhongqing's background. Then, what does Ah Yuan want to tell me? For me, I don't necessarily need Yu Zhongqing. Although I know about the existence of the Zhou family, this matter has nothing to do with me. Such a thing had happened in his previous life. Because it was related to Yu Zhongqing, he could barely remember it, but he didn't know when it happened. At most, he would let it go, but he had no obligation to protect the Zhou family. And this matter was beneficial to him, so why should he stop it? If it weren't for Wan Wan, in order to subdue Yu Zhongqing, the Zhou family would have been schemed against by me. Wan Wan doesn't want me to kill needlessly, right? Jingwan reached out and hugged him, burying her head in his neck. Ah Yuan, Li Hongyuan smiled. His Wan Wan was surprisingly easily moved. So Jingwan was miserably deceived by him. By the way, Jingwan got up and looked at him. Since you investigated Lord Yu so clearly, you must know what happened to the Yu family. He is the only one left in his family. According to his adoptive mother, he still doesn't know who the mastermind is. Yuan, you must know, right? So what if I know? Then I'll be a good person until the end. Wan, which eye of yours can see that your husband is a good person? Li Hongyuan smiled lightly, especially with his eyes. However, as she spent day and night with him, Jingwan's perception became more and more acute. At this time, someone was a little dangerous. Well, when his illness acted up, it meant that she had to bow down. It was reasonable to say that occasionally jealous between husband and wife could improve their relationship. However, a certain someone completely took it as a form of entertainment and would act up from time to time. Sometimes he even deliberately used it as a pretext to make a fuss. If you thought that he was being unreasonable and ignored him, he would instantly turn evil, and the consequences would be even more serious. Therefore, this kind of thing should be avoided as much as possible. One of the minefields was that other men must not be paid too much attention to. Yuan, regardless of whether you are a good person or a bad person, there is no such thing as a pure good person or a pure bad person in the world. I simply feel that since he is about to become your subordinate, giving him an appropriate benefit is also the way to rule, isn't it? Now, you probably can't immediately help him take revenge for the new hatred. But for the old hatred, even if you just tell him who his enemy is, he should be deeply grateful to you, right? Naturally, his loyalty will be higher. So, everything is for your sake. Look at my sincere eyes. Li Hongyuan smiled and kissed her eyes. Wan is doing her best for her husband. I am very comforted. Was this what she meant by exhausting herself? Then at a certain someone's level, he had probably died 800 times. However, whatever you say, it is fine as long as you don't go crazy easily. But thinking about it, Yuan must be aware of these things in his heart. I am just doing something unnecessary. Nothing can compare to Wan's sincerity. The way to rule naturally didn't need anyone to teach him. Wan's original intention was definitely not like this. Seeing that she was trying so hard to avoid his love, he would let her off this time. However, the narrow-minded living king of hell said that his wife could do whatever she wanted, but he couldn't just let Yu Zhongqing off the hook. He would remember this debt. As a result, Li Hongyuan's army of miserable people increased by another member. They were always being dealt with in various ways, but they didn't know the reason. However, just because of this, they wouldn't go as far as to switch sides. After seeing Li Hongyuan's ability and means, if they still had other thoughts, then their brains would be flooded with water. However, since Lord Yu already knows something about Yuan, will he suspect that you are scheming against him? Jingwan tapped his shoulder. As someone who shares a pillow, that's what he thinks. If he is so suspicious and secretly planted a double agent, this kind of thing won't happen. The Zhou family is already his most sincere proof of allegiance. He is a person who values friendship and righteousness. He won't let a second person control the Zhou family. Since he has done so, he won't suspect me. However, since Wan mentioned this, I will go and confirm it. In fact, it didn't matter. There would always be trouble to deal with in the future. Therefore, the slightest possibility should be nipped in the bud. But there should be other things in the next 2 days. What? You will know when the time comes. Wan will like it. But I am afraid you will have to work hard at that time. Since you like it, what's the harm in working hard? I am looking forward to it. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653457. HTML. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile version reading website mbicken.com. Chapter 273. The next day, also at night, after Jingwan went to bed, Li Hongyuan let someone lead Yu Zhongqing into Jin Qinhuangfu. Perhaps it was the first time he saw Li Hongyuan's imposing manner. Yu Zhongqing unconsciously knelt down. Li Hongyuan sat in the chair behind the main table, looking down at Yu Zhongqing. He still looked the same as usual, with some carelessness. The other people in the room didn't dare to breathe loudly, especially Yu Zhongqing. After a while, his forehead couldn't stop the fine beads of sweat from falling. It wasn't the first day or two that he faced Lu Qingdi, but he never felt this kind of pressure. Not the emperor, but better than the emperor. This kind of man was born to be the emperor. If he wasn't the emperor, then he must be a figure like the regent. No matter how old the person on the throne was, as long as he was there, he could only be a puppet. And if the person in power was ambitious and unwilling to be manipulated, then Li Hongyuan would certainly usurp the throne and bring disaster to the world. Yu Zhongqing secretly clenched his fist, rejoicing that he chose this kind of person, but at the same time, he was somewhat apprehensive, because this kind of master wasn't easy to get along with. This kind of master had strong control over the people below, but weak reliance. Thinking of his usual reputation and style, it could be imagined what would happen if he betrayed him. In a short time, Yu Zhongqing's thoughts turned thousands of times, but he always paid attention to Li Hongyuan's reaction. If he was distracted the first time, he wouldn't need to mix in the future. And for a worthless person, why should his master take revenge for him? The next time Li Hongming comes to find you, just agree that you don't need to get any information from him. On the contrary, Ben Wang will provide you with some convenience and help you stand firm on his side. Ben Wang has always believed that it is only interesting to take revenge on your own. It is more interesting to endure humiliation and work by the enemy's side. At the crucial moment, stabbing him with a knife is more interesting. Yu Zhongqing lowered his head. The enmity of his family's extermination, he was able to draw a bow but not release it. Now it was just a knife hidden on the enemy's side. Yes, Ingda didn't hesitate. The only problem now was that he had been rejecting the other party all this while. Now that he suddenly agreed, he naturally needed a suitable reason. He would probably have to deal with this himself. This prince will take care of the Zhou family and arrange suitable jobs for them. Unless they seek death themselves, the one who dies will be someone else. Thank you, Your Highness, Yu Zhongqing said gratefully. There was nothing wrong with Yu Zhongqing's character, and he was determined enough. However, he was also a cold person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have remained untouched for so many years. The Zhou family was probably the only soft spot in his heart. As for Zhou Curson, it doesn't matter if Zhou Curson treats her as his fiancée or his younger sister. The Zhou family is Zhou Curson's weakness. Dong Xuebing blamed himself for what happened to Zhou Curson. If he had exposed them from the start, no one would dare to treat Zhou Curson like this. But now, it has happened, and it's useless to think about it. Take revenge, and send those people to hell one by one. Yu Zhongqing had not avenged his family's extermination, and now, he had to bear new hatred. Although Yu Zhongqing's expression did not change, his mentality had changed. Once such a person is buried in hatred, he will be very scary. How much do you know about your family? Li Hongyuan asked. Yu Zhongqing abruptly raised his head and glanced at Li Hongyuan, before quickly lowering his head. This subordinate is incompetent. Li Hongyuan could clearly see the uncontrollable malevolence in Yu Zhongqing's body. However, Li Hongyuan was not affected at all. You know nothing? You are also useless. I really wonder how you got to your current position. However, that person today cherishes power and authority. His sons are growing up one by one. Although he appears to be benevolent, he is actually more and more wary of others. It is reasonable that he would rely on someone like you who has no family or background, and who is respected by others, because you rely on him. To put it bluntly, Yu Zhongqing was only able to climb to the position of the palace guard's chief commander because of luck. This was what Li Hongyuan meant. Yu Zhongqing was neither sad nor happy. It was not known if he thought so himself, or if he did not care about this matter at all. Wang Fei's mouth is soft, but her heart is even softer. She can't bear to see others not doing well. You didn't do anything for Ben Wang, but she asked for benefits for you first. It's Wang Fei's benevolence. He already knew how the Zhou family got close to Jin Wang Fei. If it was someone else, not to mention achieving their goal, it would be good if they did not cause trouble. It's good that you know. Yu Zhongqing, treat Ben Wang as your master. She is the second master, the same as Ben Wang. Do you understand? Li Hongyuan naturally wanted to tear the person who was thinking about Jingwan into pieces. But other than that, Li Hongyuan did not mind adding more capital for her. Yu Zhongqing's heart trembled. Although he realized that Jin Qinhuang treated Wang Fei differently, he did not expect it to be to this extent. Yes. However, she thinks that you might think that Ben Wang is scheming against you. She also thinks that Ben Wang is worried for nothing. Then, Yu Zhongqing, what do you think? The sweat on Yu Zhongqing's forehead became more obvious. He did not know if his new master was using Wang Fei to test him, or if he had other motives. Sure enough, even if he was kneeling here, the dust had not settled yet. Wang Fei is sincere in thinking about Wang Yi. It's understandable for her to think more about Wang Yi. This subordinate might have had such doubts before. But from now on, this subordinate will not have such thoughts anymore. Because Wang Yi does not need it. That's right, he does not need it. Perhaps to him, he was of little value. At this moment, Yu Zhongqing's understanding was very clear. Yu Daren's words are too much. You are still useful to Ben Wang. With you around, at least fewer people will die. After all, Wang Fei hopes that Ben Wang will kill less. Human lives, in his mouth, were decided so lightly. Was it according to his nature that he did not mind using absolute force to solve everything? Did it not matter if blood flowed like a river, and people were plunged into misery and suffering? It made people rejoice that there was still someone like Jin Qinhuang who could tie him down. Ben Wang will send people to investigate your family's matter. The time limit is 1 month. Many thanks, Wang Ya. Alright, you can go back. This subordinate will retire. Yu Zhongqing got up and left. Li Hongyuan sat quietly in the study for a while. He did not have the mood to deal with other matters, and went back to sleep. Hugging his wife to sleep was a great enjoyment. Jin Qinhuang, who had always indulged in enjoyment, expressed that this matter could not be stopped. Jingwan was in a daze and mumbled a few words. She was also in a half-asleep and half-awake state, but she seemed to be used to it from time to time. Yu Zhongqing. Jingwan made an "oh" sound and continued to sleep without any effect. This actually had a bit of a sequela for Jingwan. That was, she would mistakenly think that she was dreaming. When she woke up the next morning, she would completely forget about it. When she suddenly remembered at a certain time, she would know that she had forgotten something important. She was speechless towards Li Hongyuan, and even suspected that he did it on purpose. However, even so, this point had not changed. The next day, Li Hongyuan got up early and directly had people bring over the Qinhuang robe. Wearing it, he was handsome and heroic. But looking at this person's appearance, no one would associate him with powerlessness, even though he was indeed not related to this point. From the first morning of their marriage, Jingwan had never helped Li Hongyuan dress. To a certain extent, she was really an unqualified wife. Even when they slept at night, she slept on the inner side. Occasionally, when she woke up in the middle of the night, it was also Li Hongyuan who got up to give her something to drink. She was really regressing the more she lived. At this time, Jingwan was just symbolically helping Li Hongyuan tidy up his clothes, because there was no place for her to tidy up. Why did your highness think of wearing a Qinhuang robe today? To attend court. Jingwan was slightly startled. What? She just realized that this man was a Qinhuang who needed to attend court. But she couldn't be blamed. Who asked him to do this kind of thing since they got married a month ago? Thus, Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan with a teasing gaze. Has your highness thought it through today? This prince wants to hug his wife and continue to sleep. Unfortunately, the one on the dragon throne sent word that I must come today. Yuan, why are you so obedient? Jingwan moved closer. You have your own matters to attend to. Wan knows me well. Jingwan patted him. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry and go. Don't be too late and provoke public anger. They were already angry 800 years ago. But since Ben Wang is willing to show up, they should be deeply grateful. If they have any opinions, they should hold it in for Ben Wang. It was those people who had long been numb to it. Li Hongyuan left Jin Qinhuang Fu. The Qinhuang ceremonial guards entered the palace in a grandiose manner. On the carriage, His expression was calm, and without any ripples. The next day after Jingwan and the others returned from the country residence and entered the palace to pay their respects, Lu Qingdi received a secret memorial. This year in the Jiangnan region, there were problems with several counties' academy examinations. Corruption was not enough to justify it. They openly looked for people to take the examinations and bribed the examiners to buy places. For some reason it was exposed. More than a dozen students died in succession. The matter was getting bigger and bigger, and the scope was getting wider and wider. In particular, there was a county that was affected by last year's flood and had yet to recover its vitality. When this matter came out, it was simply one disaster after another. At the same time, for some reason, the salt policy was also involved. The officials filled their own pockets and officials protected each other. The loss of money amounted to tens of millions of taels. Along with the secret memorial, there was also a list of people's positions and their affiliation. Among the princes who participated in the court, except for the rich Li Hongyuan, even the sickly fifth Wang Ye was among them. Of course, it was said that this was only a part of it. One could imagine Lu Qingdi's expression. Looking at all his sons, he wished he could tear them apart alive. Originally, as an adult prince, it was understandable for him to receive some filial piety. Lu Qingdi also would not care. But the amount was so huge, where did he use it? What did he want to do? He was not dead yet. Digression. Dear friends, don't look forward to the second chapter today. The author will spend the rest of his days on the train with the baby. Plus, he will get dizzy from reading or playing with his phone on the train. Can he write? Definitely not. Haha, love you all. https://www. bicken.com/11/11807/6653459. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Pavilion mobile reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 274. Each and every one of them wanted to defend themselves, but they were often scolded as soon as they opened their mouths. The more they spoke, the more miserable they were scolded. Disobedience, unfilial, disrespect, and even treason were scolded. Of course, not everyone was qualified to receive the last one. As the saying goes, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. This was probably the best description of Prince Kong and Prince Rui, followed by the Gong Prince. These big trees endured the merciless destruction of Lu Qingdi's storm. All their jobs were suspended, and they didn't receive any salary for several years. If it weren't for Ruan Ruizhong's persuasion before Lu Qingdi opened his mouth to remove their titles, Lu Qingdi was afraid that he would have overthrown all the powerful princes. Although in the future, if he wanted to restore his title and remove the imprisonment, it was only a matter of a word from him. But the emperor also needed a reason to change his orders, and excuses were not so easy to find. Fortunately, Lu Qingdi wasn't completely irrational. After scolding his subjects, he found a way out. But thinking about it, it was still difficult to get rid of his anger. Their salary was suddenly increased from 3 years to 10 years. After that, they would all go home and eat their old money. If they dared to stretch their claws, he would directly chop them off. However, no matter how many years the salary was, basically no one cared. 10 years. No one believed that Lu Qingdi could sit on the throne for another 10 years. And no matter who ascended the throne, as long as they were still alive, they wouldn't be treated unfairly in terms of salary. No matter what, they would show mercy. However, Lu Qingdi, this angry lion, was not so easy to calm down this time. Including Empress Sun and imperial concubine Su, not to mention a group of favored concubines who were related to the previous dynasty. Whenever they said a word, he would immediately give them a cold face. The harem is not allowed to interfere in politics, and then leave in a huff. The concubines also became silent, not daring to say a word. Of course, the current situation was that Lu Qingdi didn't go to their palace at all. They couldn't see him, so what else could they say? They began to play tricks again. After the two concubines were demoted one after another, they didn't dare to make any more moves. Of course, only the favored concubines would do this kind of thing. Luchengdi didn't go to the harem? This was not the case. These days, he had been resting in consort Qin Shu's Sweet Dew Palace almost every night. Now, in the imperial court and the harem, it seemed that this was the only place that could make him feel peaceful. Perhaps Qin Shufei was not a tactful person, but she was gentle and quiet. Perhaps because Luchengdi did not like her, she was naturally not the understanding flower in Luchengdi's heart. It was just that when he was irritable, he always felt more comfortable with her. Speaking of which, Luchengdi was a complete scumbag, a typical example of a heartless man. When Luchengdi held a court assembly, no one who was qualified to attend could be left out. This was the reason why Li Hongyuan attended court. Everyone outside the main hall looked at the late arrival of Jin Qinhuang. He still had that undisciplined posture, that handsome appearance, as if nothing could affect him. It really made people very jealous and very angry. Everyone's hair was turning white. For many days, even if there was a happy occasion at home, they could not reveal a smile. Not to mention the palace servants who served Luchengdi, they did not dare to breathe loudly. Usually, they would do everything they could to get close to Luchengdi. Now that they got a good job, they could only grit their teeth and open their mouths in hatred. They secretly hated that the people above were not good. In the past, they used all kinds of benefits, said all kinds of good words, but they did not have the chance to show their faces. Now, who wants to put Jin Qinhuang in a gunny sack? Raise your hand and sign up. Let's team up and put the gunny sack. No matter what they thought, when Li Hongyuan approached, they still had to pay their respects and greet him. Just as Li Hongyuan said, his appearance was already giving face. Now that he nodded in response, the other party should feel flattered. Only Luo Peishan, as his wife's biological grandfather, could make him lower his posture and say a few words. However, the main topic of their conversation was probably Jingwan. It seemed to be harmonious, but it was more or less a little strange. It was just that Li Hongyuan's timing was more accurate. With just a few words, before the others could say anything, the court assembly began. Civil and military officials lined up in the main hall, preparing for Luchengdi's arrival. In this regard, Luchengdi almost didn't let anyone off. After all, this court assembly didn't happen every day. If he could fish for 2 days and dry the net for 3 days, then he could be a pure fatuous ruler. Sitting high on the dragon throne, he looked down at the people below and shouted, "Long live" 3 times with a calm face. However, looking at Li Hongyuan, who was obediently among them, this bastard at least didn't embarrass him this time. Among the adult princes, he was the only one who wasn't affected at all. He felt very comforted. If the others knew Luchengdi's thoughts, would they vomit blood and anger? If they had as much money as Li Hongyuan, they wouldn't have done anything to the salt policy. However, those who knew the real situation of Li Hongyuan only wanted to laugh at Luchengdi. Although they didn't know the details, how could the living king of hell be indifferent to such a fat piece of meat like the salt policy? Don't joke. It was hard to say how much money would eventually fall into his hands. This incident seemed to be unintentionally implicated because of the academy examination, but no one would believe that Li Hongyuan wasn't involved in it, especially those who clearly knew that Li Hongyuan wanted to touch Prince Rue's money. As for the others, sorry, they were all implicated by Prince Rue. The victim didn't know, and the victim didn't know. Because everyone was implicated, no one suspected that this incident was deliberately set up. They only thought that they were too unlucky. Luchengdi's purpose today was very simple: how to deal with these 2 incidents. Whether it was the academy examination or the salt policy, they were not trivial matters. The former could be said to be related to the future of Qi Yuan. Nearly 40% of the Qi Yuan's officials were sent from Jiangnan. If it was really serious, the other officials from Jiangnan would not be indifferent. Maybe some people would take this opportunity to do something bad, and the consequences could be imagined. As for the salt policy, a large proportion of Qi Yuan's finance also came from this. If there was a disaster or war, The national treasury was likely to be in trouble. Originally, the South had just suffered a big flood, and now the situation at the border was a little strange. How could Lu Qingdi not be furious? This time, he sent people to Jiangnan to conduct a thorough investigation. Who would be the imperial envoy? This was the most important point. Because of the wide range of connections, there were too few suitable people, and it was difficult to be impartial. The suitable people either had low status and couldn't control the situation. Even if they had the token given by the emperor and received the emperor's order, they still said beautiful words and disobeyed in public, but disobeyed in private. You couldn't easily deal with them, or they were in a high position and couldn't leave. No one had ever heard of a level 1 official being the imperial envoy. In short, all parties recommended a lot of people, but there were always people who strongly opposed. In the entire court, there was no suitable person to be found. Lu Qingdi's face turned green again. Beloved official Yuan, do you have a suitable candidate? Yuan Ruizhong stood out. Emperor, why not let Jin Qinhuang be the imperial envoy? As soon as these words were spoken, the imperial court fell deathly silent. Following this, many people voiced their objections in unison. Yuan Ruizhong was neither fast nor slow as he faced the officials. This official only asks everyone, why do you oppose? Who can be more suitable than Jin Qinhuang? Why oppose? Naturally, it was because Jin Qinhuang was useless and didn't know anything. What could he do if he went? Of course, they couldn't say it like that. In the end, he was the emperor's son. If the emperor reprimanded him like this, he could dislike him as much as he liked, but it was absolutely not up to these officials to make irresponsible remarks. Emperor, the last time 9th Wangye went to the west as an imperial envoy, the symbolic meaning was greater than the actual meaning. This time, Jin Qinhuang doesn't need to do anything. He only needs to suppress the officials in Jiangnan to achieve his goal. What kind of temper Jin Qinhuang has, everyone knows. He received the emperor's order. If he says 1, who dares to say 2? If he asks people to investigate thoroughly, who dares to do it half-heartedly? Moreover, Jin Qinhuang has countless wealth and has seen countless beauties. No one can buy him off. He has no relationship with the various parties in the court. In this official's opinion, even if this matter has nothing to do with his Wangye, there is no more suitable candidate than Jin Qinhuang. The words were so straightforward, and the fact was so, it made people speechless. With Jin Qinhuang's temper, taking the emperor's position was simply equivalent to taking the imperial sword that didn't exist in the Qi Yuan dynasty. Killing first and reporting later, it was absolutely not a game. Moreover, he was a prince. With the title of prince, if he killed you, then he killed you. What can you do to him? Even if you went to hell, you would have nowhere to complain. But it was also because of this that if he was appointed as an imperial envoy, then this time, Jiangnan would definitely be shaken. Who knows how many people would die? Those who would be pulled down would definitely be more, and all parties would suffer heavy losses. This was absolutely not what some people wanted to see. They all racked their brains to stop it, but they really couldn't find a suitable reason. Emperor, this official agrees. Luo Peishan was the first to stand up, and then, many people expressed their agreement. And looking at Lu Qingdi's expression, it seemed that he was also very moved. Without a doubt, there was no more suitable candidate than this son. As for the worry that he would take the opportunity to seize power, and buy people's hearts, as long as he let people who were completely loyal to him travel with him, all the problems would not be a problem. Lu Qingdi secretly thought that this was very good. Does anyone else have a suitable person to recommend? This basically meant that they had already agreed with the Grand Secretary's proposal. Opposition, reason and candidate, both were indispensable, but no one could do it. Their hearts vomited blood, but they could only pinch their noses and accept it. Therefore, more and more people seconded the proposal. At this time, if they stubbornly resisted to the end, it would only leave a bad impression in front of the emperor. Did they still want to live? Have you asked for my opinion? Seeing that almost everyone seconded the proposal, Li Hongyuan very unsociably opened his mouth. This time, almost everyone choked, but soon, many people's hearts emerged with joy. Who could stop this matter? Probably only the main character. If he didn't do it, even if he was tied up and brought to Jiangnan, as long as he didn't do anything, or did something else, it would only have the opposite effect. Lu Qingdi wanted to get down from the dragon throne and beat this evil creature to death. But he also knew that if this evil creature's temper was really bad, he really couldn't do anything to him. He sighed. Old Six, are you really not willing to share the burden and solve the difficulties for Imperial Father? This time, as beloved official Ruan said, you don't need to do anything. You only need to preside over the overall situation at the appropriate time, and let the subordinates work seriously. Just take it as a trip to Jiangnan. What do you think? Li Hongyuan frowned. Although he was a person who didn't yield to force or persuasion most of the time, he would occasionally yield to force, but he absolutely wouldn't yield to force. As for other things, I have the final say? Lu Qingdi's eyebrows twitched. Within a reasonable range. If he really let him go, who knew what he would do? What is reasonable? Li Hongyuan tirelessly asked. Lu Qingdi was irritable. Other sons didn't have to go through so much trouble to do things. Understand by yourself, understand? But what could he do? This evil creature was spoiled by him. Outside of official business, you can eat, drink, and play as you wish. If others don't provoke you, don't casually cause trouble. More specifically, you are not a 3-year-old child. I know. If there is nothing else, I will take my leave first. When you set off, just let me know. Scram scram. Lu Qingdi weakly waved his hand. Sometimes he wanted to ask what kind of sin did he commit in the end. Li Hongyuan slipped away. After deciding on the imperial envoy, the next step was to choose the main entourage. Li Hongyuan was only a mascot. These people were the most important. However, because mascots couldn't be provoked, their lethality was too great, so they had to be chosen carefully. Lu Qingdi was too lazy to wrangle with them anymore. With a wave of his hand, he only chose the most suitable person. In other words, no matter who they worked for, Lu Qingdi also said the ugly words first. If Jin Qinhuang handled it because of official business, not only would he not judge it according to the circumstances, he would also add 3 levels to the crime. If the circumstances were serious, the entire family would be searched. In order to have more deterrence, he even appointed Zhuo Qian of the Blackguard to lead 50 Blackguard to secretly accompany them. They would absolutely carry out Jin Qinhuang's orders. The Blackguard, without a doubt, belonged to the emperor's dogs. They only obeyed orders. Their execution ability was strong, their means were ruthless, and they killed people like they were scything. The people who originally had small thoughts and wanted to plan something suddenly lost 90% of their enthusiasm. The remaining 10%, if it wasn't that they didn't put Li Hongyuan in their eyes, it was that they were hoping for a fluke. Luo Peishan was an expert in this kind of thing. In any case, it wasn't the first time. Moreover, he wouldn't consider any factors other than the ability to do things. In any case, these people, no matter how they jumped around, they wouldn't be his grandson-in-law's opponent. The ones who were seeking death were themselves. It had nothing to do with him. Lu Qingdi had several other ministers make additions, and quickly decided on the personnel. Finally, the Grand Commander of the Imperial Guards will accompany them. They will be fully responsible for Jin Qinhuang's safety. Someone lit a candle for Lu Qingdi. Were you sending people to monitor him, or to help him unconditionally? The matter was urgent and couldn't be delayed for too long. Otherwise, who knew what kind of incident would happen? Therefore, the preparation time was only 3 days. On the way back to Li Hongyuan's Fu, Jingwan was also dealing with some matters. The 4 people Ci Gu and Fu all asked her to appoint a marriage. Jingwan wasn't surprised. As people who were close to the King of Hell, it wasn't strange for them to have the courage to ask for true love. After she knew that these people weren't Li Hongyuan's people, she also expected this moment. But for people together, one by one, it would give her some buffer time. Why don't we wait for Wang Ye to come back and ask him? If it was an ordinary servant girl, she could decide. But in the end, it was Li Hongyuan's personal servant girl. No matter what, she had to ask him personally. There was no other meaning. It was purely out of respect, that's all. Wang Fei, for such a small matter, just nod your head. Wang Ye won't have any objections to your decision. That was also true. That person regarding these matters didn't care at all. Since it's like this, I won't force it. Call them over for me to take a look. Although the time you've served me is short, it's also fate. Not to say that I'm helping you, but at least I should knock some sense into them, so that they'll treat you better in the future. Many thanks, Wang Fei. Jingwan chuckled. There's no need for thanks. In the end, they are Wang Ye's and my people. Although I don't have much ability, at least I have to take good care of the people around me. It's just that you're still young, and the marriage isn't urgent. You can take it slowly. You should also hand it over to Mei Lan Juju and the others. There are many things they don't understand, so you should teach them more. Wang Fei, in fact, there's nothing to hand over. After this month, it's almost done. Moreover, the marriage can't be delayed. Qing Shi's face was red, her hand intentionally or unintentionally placed on her lower abdomen. This kind of thing was really shameful. But he was very happy. Qing Shi was gradually taking care of him. Jingwan was a little stunned. Should she say that this was indeed the Jin Wangye style? Quite valiant? Qing Shi looked calm and steady. But the result was that she was pregnant before marriage. Even if it was spread out, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. But in the end, it would affect her reputation. Was it really good? Does Wangye know about your matters? Jingwan thought about it. She felt that if a certain someone didn't know, they probably wouldn't have the guts. But as a girl, how could they do this kind of thing for no reason? One was enough, but looking at it, it seemed that all four of them. It couldn't be that a certain someone told them to find it, right? Who would have thought that Jingwan accidentally revealed the truth? I know. Alright, I won't ask anymore. Since it's like this, you can prepare for the marriage with peace of mind. If there's anything, I'll let them find you. And that's not right. When I didn't know, you quietly handed over the matters in your hands. You've been thinking about getting married for a long time? Jingwan ridiculed. Wang Fei, please forgive us. It's a joyous occasion, what crime? Jingwan sent them away, and began to settle accounts with her own maidservants. It turned out that all of them were hiding it from them. In fact, Jingwan's people didn't think of seizing power, or anything at the beginning. It was only because they weren't strong enough that they worked hard to learn. Who would have thought that the result would be like this after a month? At this point, what else could be said? Li Hongyuan returned to the prince's residence. Jingwan arrived shortly after. Wan, Imperial Father has ordered me to be an Imperial envoy. I've ordered people to pack up and go to Jiangnan. The matter was too sudden. Jingwan was startled, but then she nodded. All right. Does Wangye have any special things that you need to bring? I'll have people prepare them so that we don't miss anything. Special things that I need to bring? Besides you, what else? Li Hongyuan used his hand to intimately rub her cheek. I'm going to. Jingwan was pleasantly surprised. Didn't I already tell you that I have something to do in the next 2 days? Did you forget so quickly? Or do you actually not like it? I like it, of course I like it. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653464. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Com Mobile Edition Reading Website, bicken.com. Chapter 275. I like it, of course I like it. The joy in Jingwan's eyes was not fake at all. Because of the limitations of her social background, Jingwan was far less restrained than ordinary girls before she got married, even though she was pampered by her grandmother. However, there were still many restrictions, and there were very few places she could set foot in. If she did not have her previous life, she probably would not feel anything. Perhaps she would feel regret, but she would not have too much yearning. However, after experiencing the civilization of her previous life, she had been to many places and seen many cultural sceneries. Fortunately, she was able to go to a completely different place. If she could not see it, she was afraid that she would miss it after she died. However, in an instant, Jingwan was a little hesitant. Since you are traveling as an imperial envoy, is it okay for me to follow? Since there is a plan, how can there be a problem? Li Hongyuan briefly explained the situation in Jiangnan to Jingwan. Actually, it doesn't matter whether I go or not. It's not difficult to solve the problem. I've taken on this once-in-a-lifetime task. As long as I still want to bring you to Jiangnan to play legitimately. I'm a prince, and I'm even more special. Even if I leave the capital, I'll just take a stroll in the surrounding areas. If I want to go too far, it's impossible for me to do so without an imperial order. Yuan, such a man, even if she was bullied from time to time, he was also willing to endure it. His wife didn't have many preferences, but it wasn't easy to satisfy them. Every time he saw her sparkling eyes, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He didn't have such a feeling when everything was under his control. However, while satisfying her, he was also very satisfied. Of course, when it came to things like his wife throwing herself into his arms, he was even more impolite. However, Yuan, the matter in Jiangnan, it was not you who caused it, right? She definitely shouldn't do something like toying with the feudal vassals. She might be a bit special, but she was still more ordinary. She couldn't bear such a sin. In essence, it was all men's fault for causing the downfall of a country. However, they were the source of it. Even if they didn't do anything, they still had to bear a share of the sins that they had committed. What if I say yes? What will Wanwan do? Li Hongyuan asked seriously. Jingwan looked at him and couldn't tell if he was telling the truth. She frowned and said, "If that's the case, then even if I go to hell, I'll be with you. Just don't do it again. Yuan, you've done a lot for me, but I can't do anything for you. I just want you to be well." She couldn't criticize him in the name of righteousness. Li Hongyuan chuckled. Of course it's not true. This matter has always existed. I just got someone to expose it at the right time to get rid of a group of vermin in advance. I pray for the next life with Wanwan, but it's enough for me to go to hell. You just have to wait for me up there. Jingwan's eyes were slightly wet, and her lips moved. She wanted to ask why was he so good to her? She looked forward to the answer, but she was also afraid of the answer. Because this man's kindness to her seemed to have existed from the beginning. It was so inexplicable. How could she not mind? She knew what state she was in now. Because she cared, she minded. It had only been a month, and this man had made her fall to this point. It could be imagined how high and how terrible his methods were. Yuan, don't let me down. Please don't let me down. Otherwise, I might really go crazy and kill people. I can give in and tolerate everything else, but this is the only thing I can be selfish. Knowing that you're suffering down there, how could I wait up there as if nothing had happened? That kind of anxiety, I'd rather exchange it for physical pain. Perhaps, as long as I could see you, I'd be able to smile even if I had to endure the same pain as you. Even though her eyes were filled with tears, Jingwan still smiled. It was probably the first time that Li Hongyuan heard Jingwan express her feelings so clearly. He was a little surprised, but more than that, he spontaneously felt joy. He clasped the back of Jingwan's head and unceremoniously kissed her. Jingwan naturally didn't refuse, and there was a deeper passion that she didn't have in the past. There was no surprise that the heavenly thunder attracted the earth fire. However, the maidservants were already used to the two of them taking the initiative to retreat when they were together. If they weren't called, they basically wouldn't appear. And Mama Gong, who knew more, was even stricter with them. There were some things that didn't benefit them at all if they heard it. Li Hongyuan knew that he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop today. He didn't care. Outsiders couldn't break into Haiding restaurant, but there was only him and Jingwan here. If he didn't go out, there would always be people who would have a lot of imaginations. He was very clear that once it was revealed that he was going to take Jingwan to Jiangnan, she would definitely receive attention from all sides. At this time it was better to stop. It could be considered the first time that he came to stop. Jingwan's face was flushed, and she was a little embarrassed. She knew that now was not the right time. Sure enough, after hanging around a certain someone for so long, she became more and more unbridled and outrageous. Li Hongyuan didn't tease her. He said something else to let the waves of passion in his body gradually subside. Jingwan told him about the 4 people, Shi, Go and Fu. It's inconvenient for Qingshi to go out, so let her stay. As for the other 3 people's wedding, let's wait until they come back. No need. The day after tomorrow, all 4 of them will be married off. Li Hongyuan decided. Jingwan was speechless. That's too rushed. How can 2 days be enough to prepare a wedding? Their wedding has probably been prepared for a long time. The so-called guests are just people in the fu. Not to mention 2 days. Even tonight is enough for them to consummate their marriage. Jingwan couldn't help but want to face-bomb. Having this kind of master, they were really unlucky. This isn't a problem with the guests, okay? Although they already have a marriage partner, the 3 books and 6 rites. How can the entire agenda be completed in 1 or 2 days? Don't tell me that the agenda has already been completed, and only the last step is left. Without reporting to Master, do they have the guts to talk about marriage? Since it's Master's decision, all the red tape can naturally be skipped. No one will deny the marriage between them. Everything that Master gives is grace. Li Hongyuan said matter-of-factly. Fine, fine, fine. Whatever you say. It's just that I've only been married for a month, and I've already married off my husband's personal maidservants. Her reputation as a jealous woman was probably going to be tarnished. Although she knew that the 4 maidservants weren't bedwarmers, outsiders didn't know. Slow down? Can't you take it slow? Since we have to do it anyway, why not do it all at once? It's troublesome to do it over and over again. He drank vinegar all day long and was a jealous man. As his wife, she naturally had to clean up all the flowers and plants around him. I can't win against you. It was better to prepare more dowries for the 4 of them. She felt wronged at the wedding, so she could only compensate in other places. Moreover, as long as she wanted to monopolize him, she would have to face this sooner or later. It didn't matter if it was earlier or later. This time, I'll do my best to arrange for the waterway to Jiangnan. However, the carriage definitely can't be lacking. You'll feel uncomfortable if you sit in the carriage for too long. This is always a problem. Those people from the Ministry of Works are really useless. I've asked them to modify the carriage, but they still haven't had any good results. This is my own problem. Moreover, the bumpy ride in the carriage isn't just the carriage's problem. Unfortunately, she didn't know the formula for cement. Even if she only knew the general idea, if she gave it to someone to study, there was a 90% chance that they would succeed in the end. The carriage itself was a shock absorber. As long as the wheels were replaced with gum, it would be greatly improved. However, at this moment, Jingwan suddenly felt that even if she had lived in a mechanical and electronic civilization, she was actually a piece of trash. For the first time in more than 10 years of life, she began to deny herself. Thinking about it, it was enough. It was said that people with motion sickness had to sit in more carriages and suffer a few more times before they would be fine. Jingwan wondered if she should also try it. Will Su Guifei let you enter the palace? Fu Huang is currently in a fit of anger. How could she do such a stupid thing? Not to mention her. Before we leave, my brothers won't come. As for the main entourage, those who are a bit more daring will come. In addition, those sisters-in-law of yours will definitely come looking for you. If you don't want to pay attention to them, then refuse them all. In any case, it will only be 2 or 3 days at most. There's no time to see them one by one. Then I'll see them all together. Jingwan smiled. At that time, she was afraid that no one would speak in front of her. Offending no one, but offending everyone? Li Hongyuan tacitly followed up. At least on the surface, no one will say anything. And very Bunwang's style. Indeed, how many people hated Jin Qinwang to the point of gnashing their teeth? But in front of him, they didn't dare to fart. This isn't marrying a chicken to follow the chicken, marrying a dog to follow the dog. Marrying Jin Qinwang, one must have the awareness of being the enemy of the whole world. Jingwan faintly said, "This is very good. Wan, continue to maintain it. Wait until the day when Wan doesn't need me, and can make everyone angry at you, but not dare to say anything. You've cultivated to the peak." Towards a certain someone who always felt good about himself and always boasted shamelessly, Jingwan was now more and more calm, but she didn't want to admit it. Under normal circumstances, isn't it one who creates trouble and the other who cleans up the mess from behind. Then the trouble that I create. Wan, are you sure you can clean it up? Heh, you really do know your own limits. Just as Li Hongyuan said, there were indeed people who came to the door, but they didn't know if it was their own intention or their master's instruction. Li Hongyuan gave them face and met them, but the first people who came were two great Buddhas, the Imperial Guard's commander, and the blackguard Zhuqianshi. Their meaning was that they were following the emperor's orders, because it was the first time they assisted Jin Qinhuang in handling an errand, so that they could come first to listen to Jin Qinhuang's admonition, understand Jin Qinhuang's way of doing things, and cultivate tacit understanding, so that they could do their job better. How many people silently cursed that Lu Chengdi guarded against them as if they were thieves, not giving them the slightest chance. But since they had already come to the door, naturally it wouldn't be so simple. They turned their heads and left, expressing their lack of confidence, and could only say a bunch of words to save face, something like they would do their best to complete the errand, as long as they would listen to Jin Qinhuang's orders. When the time comes, if Jin Qinhuang had any matters, he would just have to instruct and so on. Li Hongyuan appeared to be quite patient. While drinking tea, he patiently listened to them finish speaking, then nodded and said that so-and-so Darren's words, he would remember them. Since they were so loyal to the emperor and Qi Yuan, he definitely wouldn't disappoint their good intentions. What they said today, in the future, in Jiangnan, he would definitely fulfill them. What was called moving a stone to smash one's own foot, this was it. The more words that were said, the more miserable it would be when the time came. If there was even the slightest bit of irresponsibility, at that time, your loyalty would be doubted. If you said 10 sentences and did 9 sentences well, if there was one sentence that was not done, you would be questioned. Boasting, arrogant and conceited. And if you didn't say a sentence but did something beautifully, you would probably be praised. Wholeheartedly, well from the beginning to the end, attentively and carefully, having self-awareness. As the saying goes, they were all in the same line of work. Others had already gone to report to the peak. If you didn't go, wouldn't it be bad? And after receiving Jin Qinhuang's inhumane threat, they naturally wouldn't tell others about the situation. Everyone was the same, only then would they be able to mentally balance out. Therefore, one after another, they went to Jin Qinhuang Fu. Those who didn't have any thoughts would go in groups of 2 or even 3. Those who had selfish motives would face the 3 great Buddhas alone, with beads of sweat dripping down their hair and 2 legs trembling. Most likely, they were all just talking about face. The result was naturally the same. Since the opening of Jin Qinhuang Fu, it was the first time that so many court officials had come to visit one after another. It was very lively. The great commander of the Imperial Guards, Zhuqianshi of the blackguard. One was a standard 3rd rank, the other was a standard 4th rank. Both of them could be considered young and promising, but when Li Hongyuan received the court officials, they maintained silence from beginning to end. Looking at his simple and crude, but extremely effective way of doing things, they didn't. Yu Zhongqing, on the other hand, didn't have any thoughts. After all, he had already pledged allegiance to him. When there were orders, he would do as he was told. When there weren't, he would do his own thing. As for Zhuqianshi of the blackguard, this person's identity was actually a bit special. In the blackguard, although there was a standard 3rd rank commander and a lower 3rd rank commander above him, his status was on the same level as them. Sometimes his words were more effective than the 2 above him. This was because he was actually Lu Qingdi's adopted son, and was even bestowed with the surname Li by Lu Qingdi. This person didn't look like he was over the top, and seemed to be about the same age as Li Hongyuan. In fact, he was only 2 years younger than Yu Zhongqing, but his face was relatively tender. However, those who knew this person basically didn't dare to look down on him. His face was sharp, and there was a hint of killing intent. It wasn't that there weren't any princes who wanted to recruit him, but they didn't dare to make a move. Whether or not they succeeded in recruiting Yu Zhongqing, there wouldn't be any harm. And because he didn't hold back in front of Lu Qingdi, no one dared to speak lightly. Li Suyan was secretly probing Li Hongyuan. Was Li Hongyuan completely unaware? Of course not. His understanding of Li Suyen was beyond others. This person, in Li Hongyuan's eyes, was actually very interesting. In everyone's eyes, he was absolutely loyal to Le Qingdi, but in fact he wasn't. Li Hongyuan never thought of recruiting this person, because the result would be the same. In the previous life, after Li Hongyuan ascended the throne, he understood this person and promoted him to the commander of the Blackguard. He was a tyrant, and countless families were confiscated and destroyed, and Li Suyen was the executor. The two entered Jinqin Wangfu, and didn't seem to be prepared to leave. Li Hongyuan was too lazy to care about them, and didn't even let people arrange a place for them to stay. Secondly, these two people were used to going through wind and rain. Even if they were going to Jiangnan, they wouldn't prepare a lot of things, so it didn't matter where they stayed. Li Hongyuan didn't care. But Eunuch Mu couldn't pretend that he didn't know. Without saying anything, he went to report to the Wangfei, and asked for the Wangfei's instructions. Yu Zhongqing didn't say anything, but Jingwan naturally knew. Zhua Qian of the Blackguard? Thinking of last year's court examination, the three people who passed the Jinshi examination paraded through the streets on horseback, as if this person was the one holding the line. Of course, the premise was that the person in this position hadn't been changed. Is it the same person as last year? Eunuch Mu didn't understand, but he still answered truthfully. This Li Daran was appointed as the Zhua Qian of the Blackguard 2 years ago. Although they only met once, Jingwan still had some impression. But, you said that his surname is Li, and he's a member of the royal family? Replying to the Wangfei, no, Li Daran is actually the emperor's adopted son. Jingwan nodded. Although the emperor didn't take in many adopted sons, it wasn't like there weren't any. Tell me, what does the Blackguard do? Eunuch Mu slightly hesitated. The Blackguard is in charge of the prison, has the power to patrol and arrest, and has the discipline department, which is responsible for investigation, arrest, interrogation, and other matters. Unlike the Ministry of Justice, they are only responsible for relatively special matters, and directly report to the emperor. It was really similar to the Brocade Guards, but Jingwan had never heard of the Blackguard's prestige before. She didn't think that it was far from the extent that the mention of black would cause her face to change. Since they may have to stay in the Fu, you can arrange the accommodations as you see fit. Just treat them as two ordinary guests in the Fu. Don't neglect them, and don't be overly attentive. Just treat them as normal. In the entire Jinqin Wangfu, there were only 2 places that had secrets: the study room and the Begonia elegant residence. And the so-called secrets inside, those who didn't know, simply couldn't understand. Once they got their hands on it, they might throw it away as useless things. Yes, then this servant will go and have people prepare? I have one more thing here. The day after tomorrow, Si Ge and Fu will get married. Inform the prefectural magistrate to make preparations. All the expenses will be taken from the Fu. Although the time is a little short, it's better to have a lively ceremony. When she said this to Muin, Jingwan could only try to be as calm as possible. After all, it was really not proper. However, Eunuch Mu was calmer than Jingwan, and he didn't even feel that something was wrong. The 4 sisters are lucky to have the princess to take care of them. Sure enough, like master, like servant, the thoughts of the living king of hell had a profound effect on the people below. Jingwan had seen the future husbands of the 4 sisters before. One was a gardener and 3 guards, which was really a little unexpected. However, through a simple understanding, these people were still good in all aspects. In addition, they all worked for the Jinqin Wangfu, so there was nothing to be worried about. However, she just moved her lips. How could she take care of them? You flattered her as soon as you opened your mouth. Did you really deserve to be the first lackey of the living king of hell? Okay, don't talk nonsense here. Do it quickly. Yes, this servant will go right away. Eunuch Mu became more flattering. But his flattery was actually not annoying, because she didn't hide it at all. The news that Li Hongyuan's 4 personal maids were married off by Jingwan was like a gust of wind, which wrinkled the calm lake. Naturally, there were different opinions. More than 90% of the people didn't have good words. The rest thought that Jingwan's behavior was understandable. But after all, she was young and impetuous. It made people feel that she had lost her mind and done something stupid. Originally, she looked like a generous and calm girl. At this moment, Prince Jin was going to Jiangnan on an errand. At this time, she hurriedly married his personal maids. Although she stopped him from taking the beauties with him, the result was more harm than good. Such a hasty marriage made the married maids complain. If they loved Prince Jin, they would resent him even more. As for the person who married them, he was forced to take on the master's broken shoes. It would be strange if he felt comfortable in his heart. All of them were dissatisfied with the female master. In the future, when he managed the prince's mansion, there would inevitably be all kinds of troubles. Moreover, there were so many beauties in Jiangnan. If he didn't take any of them with him, he might bring a group of beauties back. Those who were worried about her, but didn't know the inside story, were naturally a little anxious. Including Great Elder Princess, they couldn't wait to pull Jingwan over and reprimand her. No matter what others said, Prince Jin's mansion was bustling with noise and excitement. The things used were just like those used by many officials' families. Seeing this, many servants in the mansion were envious. Even if they thought that the princess made the compensation because of a guilty conscience, it couldn't reduce their jealousy in their hearts. The 4 bridegrooms more or less all had family members present. Being praised and insulted by others, it was indescribably unpleasant. Even though their own children swore that the person they were marrying was absolutely pure and had nothing to do with the prince, the stifling feeling in their hearts was still difficult to dispel. In the end, after being repeatedly persuaded, they happily accepted their master's good intentions. That was the most important thing. Then, looking at the generous rewards that both the man and woman received, there were many who were righteous and confident. No matter what kind of rumors and slanders there were inside and outside the mansion, Jingwan was not affected at all. She even asked people to treat those words as interesting things to tell her. It was just the beginning. If it was really so easy to be influenced, how could they talk about being a couple for a lifetime? Jingwan didn't answer the invitation of her sisters-in-law. Instead, she invited them. Seeing that Jingwan was still glowing and smiling, the several princesses really didn't know what to say. It should be known that this time, it was not as simple as the person who sent them the courtesans last time. At that time, they could barely find an excuse, but this time, they couldn't defend themselves. After doing this kind of thing, she could still meet people openly without any change in her expression. She was not afraid of others talking about her. It really made people envious and jealous. They also wanted to deal with their husband's concubines so neatly. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Not now, let alone in the early stage of marriage. Because of her relationship with her father, the Gongqin Wangfei was arrogant enough, but she had never done this kind of thing. Everyone said she was stupid. Unfortunately, they didn't even have the courage to be stupid, because they all knew what the other's goal was. They wanted to talk to Jingwan alone, but they also wanted to stop others. Everyone thought this way, leading to the result that no one was left alone. In the end, they had to admit that today's goal was not achieved. They secretly said that Jingwan was cunning. If they weren't happy, they naturally wouldn't let her be happy. The Gongqin Wangfei had the deepest enmity with Jingwan, but she was repeatedly warned not to provoke Jingwan. Her heart was suffocating. When she encountered this kind of thing that satisfied her mouth, she naturally had the fastest mouth. She put on a fake smile and said that Jingwan really did beautifully. Jingwan's expression didn't change. It can't be compared to fourth sister-in-law. At least, I didn't make people completely disappear. The Gongqin Wangfei's face alternated between green and white. The number of foxes that were killed by her wasn't small. In this aspect, she really didn't have the qualifications to talk about others. They actually had some understanding of Jingwan's mouth. You could say that she had a sharp tongue, but in fact she wasn't. It was just that when everyone was beating around the bush, she was like a fool who didn't understand anything. She was so straightforward that it was frightening. Ironic words were treated as righteous words. And when it came to righteous words, she could give you 9 bends and 18 bends, saying a lot of distortions that you couldn't think of. She could still make sense and tell outsiders that you couldn't deny it even if you wanted to. This kind of person, would she really do such an obvious stupid thing? At the moment, they had no choice but to carefully consider this question. The few of them went back the same way they came. Jingwon closed the door and didn't go out, happily packing up her things. There were only a few people who could make her deliver herself to their door, with just a few words. However, at this time, they didn't look for Jingwon. It seemed that they all had a tacit understanding to wait until Jin Qinwang left. In fact, Su Guifei wanted to see her for her biological son, and let Jingwon pass a message to her adopted son. However, after considering Lu Qingdi, she didn't do so. After all, even if she said that it was only because of her son's inner residence, no one would believe her. If she interfered too much and completely lost the emperor's heart, it would be troublesome. It was Jin Qinwang's first time on an errand, and his first time leaving the capital for an errand. The people sending him off couldn't be said to not be spectacular. However, when they saw Jin Qinwang's huge amount of luggage, they were collectively speechless. Was he preparing to settle down in Jiangnan and not come back? Or what? You're a big man. Do you need to be so particular about it? His Majesty already said that you can eat, drink, and play as you please. Are you still afraid that you won't be able to live comfortably over there? These things naturally didn't belong to Li Hongyuan. More than 90% of them belonged to Jingwan. However, he really wasn't wrongly accused. According to Jingwan's idea, he could casually bring some, and then bring enough money. Jiangnan was a land of wealth. There wasn't anything to eat or wear. If it wasn't to maintain the dignity of the Wangfu, she even wanted to bring money. As a result, Li Hongyuan's face turned stiff and he rejected it. For a man who threw the best things on his wife, those things really didn't enter his eyes. Even if there was something that he liked, he would just buy it when the time came. Jingwan was extremely speechless. However, for this kind of insignificant matter, if he was unyielding, she could only compromise in the end. Moreover, on this matter, the people who served her all stood on Wang Ye's side. She was all alone. Even when they reached the final place of farewell, they didn't see Jingwan coming down from the carriage. Everyone thought that Jin Qinwang Fei was really deeply affectionate towards Jin Qinwang. It wasn't easy for them to persuade, so they naturally targeted Luo Peishan, this biological grandfather. However, this old fox stroked his beard, unperturbed, and didn't say a word. Jin Qinwang ordered to speed up, and the entire procession started to run. Not a single shadow came down from his carriage. The people who stayed behind. Are you sure that Jin Qinwang Fei is in the carriage? Someone asked, puzzled. Naturally, I'm sure. Then the close relative Wang Fei is going to Jiangnan with Jin Qinwang. The group was in a mess. What was this? When a man went on an errand as a wife, she didn't stay behind to take care of the family and followed along. What was this? Even if it was a general guarding the borders, he would at most bring a concubine to serve by his side. How could a dignified Wang Fei be so improper? Luo Darren doesn't want to say anything? Someone bombarded Luo Peishan. A married lady is like spilled water. She is now Jin Qinwang Fei. This official has to greet her. What do you want this official to say? Luo Peishan brushed his sleeves and said, so reasonable. So to say Luo Darren already knew about this matter? If this official says that I know, you will definitely say that it is indeed so. If this official says that I don't know, you will definitely not believe it. Then, what do you want this official to say? This official still has matters to attend to, and will return first. Everyone, please do as you wish. Luo Peishan elegantly got on his own carriage and left. Even if he was hopping mad, there was nothing he could do. Just as Luo Peishan said, he couldn't manage Jin Qinwang Fei right now. Everyone go back. Jin Qinwang Fei brought it himself. His Majesty nodded in agreement. We don't need to meddle in other people's business. That's right. The matter is already a foregone conclusion. We can't chase Jin Qinwang Fei back. Let's go, let's go. Jin Qinwang Fei's agreement was inevitable. But when did His Majesty agree? Those who didn't understand were given a supercilious look. Idiot. Wasn't Lu Qingdi's words obvious? If Jin Qinwang Fei was happy, as long as he didn't go overboard, He could do anything. It was just taking his wife to tour Jiangnan. Compared to finding trouble for others, it was nothing. On the other hand, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Things that didn't work with the living king of hell could be done through foreign diplomacy. Starting with Jin Qin Wang Fei, they might achieve unexpected results. Jin Qin Wang Fei wasn't soft-hearted towards others. How could he take care of his own wife? Bringing her along was enough to show how much he valued her. Thinking through this point, many people's minds became active again. Sure enough, when Lu Qingdi knew about the good deed Li Hongyuan did, he just waved his hand and didn't say anything. Only, those people who were lining up to have a heart-to-heart talk with Jingwan didn't know what kind of expression they should show. This person wasn't in the capital. What was there to talk about? Those who could figure it out naturally waved their hands and let it go. Those who couldn't figure it out felt that they had been ruthlessly played and were furious. Thinking about the possible reactions of those people, Jingwan was actually quite happy. Leaning in Li Hongyuan's arms, she laughed cheerfully. Just this little thing can make you this happy? If you can always laugh, that would be good. Jingwan poked him. Don't say such a depressing thing now. People who have never fainted in a carriage don't know how uncomfortable it is. Actually, I have a way. Maybe it can make Wan not feel uncomfortable, but also make the whole journey comfortable. Li Hongyuan said with a deeper meaning. What is it? Jingwan looked up at him with interest, only to see his undisguised gaze. How could she not know what he wanted to do? She unhappily patted him. Don't even think about it. This carriage was surrounded by experts with sharp ears and eyes. It was fine if she was shameless in front of her own people. But in front of outsiders, even if she was beaten to death, she wouldn't be so thick-skinned as to do such an extremely shameful thing as having sex in the carriage. Li Hongyuan pulled her into his arms, lowered his voice, and laughed softly in her ear. Wan doesn't have to make a sound. I've had people reinforce this carriage, so when it's moving, no one will be able to see it from outside. Does Wan really not want to try it? Maybe it really won't be uncomfortable at all. Shut up. Jingwan said with some embarrassment. All right, Wan, whatever you say. However, as long as Wan needs it, this husband is always at your service. Jingwan impolitely rolled her eyes at him. Even if she felt uncomfortable, she would never do such a thing. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows noncommittally. When the time came, it would be good if she could really refuse. Li Hongyuan was still very confident about this, so he was not in a hurry now. Because there were many people around, Li Hongyuan didn't say anything important to Jingwan. He just leaned on the bed and whispered in her ear. The outside of this carriage still didn't exceed the standard of a prince's carriage, but the inside was different. It was simply a small inner room. Although it was small, it had all the essentials. According to Jingwan, it was a 100% caravan, and it was a luxurious and enhanced version. It strived to be comfortable and luxurious. As time passed, Jingwan began to feel a little uncomfortable. She wanted to sleep but couldn't. Li Hongyuan knew that she felt uncomfortable, but it was the first time he felt it so close. Her healthy and rosy face turned pale, just like a healthy person who was gradually getting sick. Li Hongyuan's heart ached for her. He became irritable and didn't have the mood to joke. He just wanted to relieve her discomfort. Li Hongyuan held her face and kissed her without hesitation. After a short struggle, Jingwan began to cater to him. He knew that Jingwan was thin-skinned, and he didn't want a group of men to hear Jingwan's embarrassing moans. Even if he didn't kiss her, he would let Jingwan bite something. Jingwan didn't seem to forget the people outside. She seemed to be very tolerant. Her body was tense, and she was inexplicably excited. Li Hongyuan felt the change in her, and his irritable mood disappeared. He enjoyed this different kind of joy. Occasionally he would tease Jingwan. Are you still uncomfortable? Are you very comfortable? Jingwan's face turned red, but she couldn't scold him. Probably because they didn't know what day it was. When they stopped, the carriage had also stopped. She didn't know how long they had been listening. Jingwan felt that she didn't have the face to see people. She wasn't sure that she didn't make a sound on the way. At the front of the carriage, there was a light knock on the door used to separate them. Gong Mama's voice came. Wang Yi, is Wang Fei better? We've arrived at the post station. Do you want to rest before continuing? Wait a moment. Send in some warm water. Yes. Gong Mama brought in 2 servant girls. Li Hongyuan quickly came out dressed neatly. No one could tell what had happened. But after being in the carriage for so long, his clothes were not messy at all. Unless he had been sitting upright the whole time. But was the king of hell that kind of person? So if it was too tidy, it would be more conspicuous. Gong Mama brought the servant girls to help Jingwan freshen up. She whispered a few words to her, appeasing Jingwan's heart. In fact, it hadn't been long since they stopped, and there really wasn't any movement. It was only because they were familiar with it that they found some clues. Other people shouldn't know. Previously, they had told them that their Wang Fei would be uncomfortable sitting in the carriage for a long time. In fact, it wasn't just Jingwan's problem. Along the way, Jingwan didn't let them stop, and no one could point out anything. Jingwan heaved a sigh of relief. However, looking at Jingwan's current complexion, Gong Mama and the others were actually very happy. This was more comfortable than the sickly Wang Fei. Jin Qinhuang wanted to rest for an hour. No one could say anything. Even if they knew that they were in a hurry, they could only pinch their noses and accept it. Jingwan was carried down by Li Hongyuan later. Her cloak was tightly covered, and the rooms in the post station had been changed thoroughly by the servant girls. Looking at the familiar things, this was the reason why a certain someone had to bring so many things. It was just resting for an hour. Was there a need to go through so much trouble? Was it to make some food, and also to bring their own ingredients? Jingwan wasn't too sure. In a certain carriage, was there still ice to ensure the freshness of the vegetables and fruits? In fact, Jingwan later confirmed her thoughts. However, regarding these matters, a certain someone had always been obstinate. No matter how much she said, it was all in vain. Therefore, she could only take care of other people's emotions as much as possible, so that they would have as little complaints as possible. This was also human nature. Thus, a group of mortals enjoyed things that they couldn't even think of during the arduous journey. People in the Wangfu clearly expressed that this was Wang Fei's order. Thinking about Jin Qinhuang, he really didn't know how to conduct himself, so there was no need to doubt this point. In their hearts, it was not good to think about Jingwan anymore. The willful one was obviously Jin Qinhuang. Seeing that Jingwan had inadvertently bought people's hearts, Li Hongyuan indifferently looked at them. Each and every one of them should be deeply grateful to Wan Wan. After an hour, they quickly packed their things and prepared to leave. Jingwan inadvertently turned her head and saw some abandoned disposable things. Li Hongyuan ordered people to burn them. The things that his wife had used were not things that other people could use. Jingwan was completely powerless. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. After that, the journey was relatively smooth. When they got on the boat, they sped up and didn't slow down the overall time. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/665347 HTML chapter error. Click here to report, exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bika Go mobile reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 276. All in all, in just a few days, everyone more or less had an understanding. Jin Qinhuang Fei was really a good person. How could she marry such a slag like Jin Qinhuang? Those who had this thought, not only the people from other factions, but also Jin Qinhuang's people. Jin Qinhuang's ability was beyond doubt. Those who had seen it all thought that he was the most suitable heir to the throne. However, with such a strong master, you might not be able to keep up with his thinking speed. Once your reaction was slow, he would look at you as if you were an idiot, making you feel ashamed and want to die. At one point, you would doubt your previous life. And Li Hongyuan's nature was cold and ruthless, without any mercy, and his methods were bloody. In fact, those who worked for him as time passed, their understanding of him deepened, and they all had faint worries in their hearts. It was just that no one dared to easily break this layer of worry. Perhaps they were deceiving themselves and didn't want to admit it. After having a female master, knowing her temperament, understanding her character, and more importantly, knowing that the master cared about her and was able to listen to her advice, there was really nothing more joyous than this. Under normal circumstances, a woman's influence on the emperor was too great. This was absolutely not what the officials wanted to see. However, if the emperor had extraordinary ability, but was essentially a tyrant, and this woman could influence the emperor's thoughts and even make decisions, she was fundamentally righteous and could distinguish right from wrong, then this kind of combination was actually a happy sight. Along the way, those who worked for Li Hongyuan, whether it was in the open or in the dark, saw everything and were gratified. The hidden worries in their hearts also gradually faded until they completely disappeared. Naturally, they gave Jingwan more respect from their hearts. At the same time, it also imperceptibly influenced other people's view of Jingwan. As for the point that Jin Qinhuang Fei was a jealous woman, she did those things, but it didn't affect her relationship with Jin Qinhuang. Just thinking about it, one should know that this wasn't Jin Qinhuang Fei's problem alone. Without Jin Qinhuang Fei's connivance, how could Jin Qinhuang Fei, as his wife, be so unscrupulous? Not to mention that a jealous empress would affect the emperor's children. If the empress was unhappy and continued to tie the emperor down, then there was no need to talk about the future. The emperor himself would collapse the country first. Then what was the use of having more children? It was said that the more children one had, the more blessings one would have. But in reality, with so many sons, how many of them would be able to live a life full of blessings, peace, and happiness? It was clearly a case of brothers quarreling and falling apart. More of them were fighting to the death. 10 dozen good-for-nothings who only cared about benefits couldn't even compare to an outstanding successor. A rational person would believe that quality was more important than quantity, even if it was a son. Well, it was still too early to talk about this now. After all, these variables could exist at any time. It was useless to think too much about it. The most important thing was what was in front of him. Li Hongyuan couldn't help but smile when he saw the changes in the people around him. Some people's worries weren't groundless. He was well aware of his current nature. Without Jingwan, there was a 90% chance that he would act recklessly and, as Master Liaochen had said, cause misery and suffering to the people. He left behind a paradise only because she was in this land. Right now, he was laying the groundwork bit by bit to increase her leverage and push her to the highest position so that Wan's influence would grow. In the future, when he ascended to the throne, the court officials wouldn't urge him to expand the harem and have more children. Instead, they would do the opposite and urge him to favor only one woman. If he failed a woman like the empress, the heavens would not tolerate it. Regardless of whether it was out of sincerity or because they were worried that he would act recklessly without restraints. As long as he could reach this point for him, it might be a greater achievement than creating a golden age. The mighty fleet moved forward on the canal. Everywhere it passed, all the boats moved aside. Li Hongyuan acted like a tyrant. There was no need to talk about keeping a low profile or investigating in secret. Everywhere he went, it was clear to everyone that he, Li Hongyuan, the current Qinhuang, the imperial envoy appointed by the emperor, had arrived. Some people wanted to ask, with such great fanfare, what could they find? They were afraid that all the evidence of their crimes had been covered up. If they colluded with each other, they would return empty-handed. Someone had given him advice, but Li Hongyuan didn't listen at all and continued to do as he pleased. Originally, the most luxurious boat in the fleet was his and Jingwan's. The rest of the people, except for Yu Zhongqing and Li Suyan, were all from Jin Qinhuang Fu. There were originally a lot of people, but after they were placed on the boat, it was actually very empty. As for whether the other people on the boat would be pitifully squeezed together, that was not within his scope of concern. As the main entourage, if they wanted to board the boat to talk to him, they had to obtain his consent. If he was tired of hearing it, he would forbid them from boarding the boat. Thus, the others could only stand on another boat and watch Li Hongyuan standing at the highest point, so free and easy and comfortable. They could only silently cry in the wind. Therefore, Jin Qinhuang's temper became better. That was definitely an illusion. It was only because Jin Qinhuang Fei was there as a buffer, so he didn't find fault. Wang Fei, you're really a good person, ah. Then can you help a bit? But it was very embarrassing. Jingwang couldn't hear their inner voices. Moreover, on official matters, she believed that he must have a plan, and had a card up his sleeve. Therefore, no matter what he did now, she wouldn't say anything. Instead, she was full of character, and had people prepare iron plates for barbecue. On a sunny day, the wind was blowing in their faces. On the deck, a specially built iron plate barbecue rack was set up. All kinds of food were skewered and piled into a small mountain. During the barbecue process, the aroma spread, and the gluttonous worms in their stomachs became active. When they were in Qian Fu, Meilan, Zhuju Ju Mei, for people's barbecue skills had been trained to be excellent. In addition, Hei Mei and Bai Xiao, who were born with full skills in this aspect, could learn it after learning it once. Moreover, the cooks brought out from the Wangfu weren't just for show. For them, this thing didn't require any skill. Jingwan only needed to open her mouth and wait to eat. Jingwan's cooking skills weren't very good, but she thought that barbecue was pretty good. She intended to let her husband have a taste of her cooking. Considering that a certain someone was a carnivore, Jingwan didn't make things difficult for him this time. She barbecued a few skewers of whole meat, and sent them to Li Hongyuan. Try it, with a little hope. After all, a certain someone's mouth was so picky. Who knew if the food she made could be eaten by him? Li Hongyuan found it funny. Everyone, including his wife, thought that he was the most delicate, and didn't use anything that wasn't the best. Li Hongyuan took a bite from Jingwan's hand, and tasted it carefully. It tastes good. Jingwan smiled happily. It was so sincere and natural. Just because of such a small matter, Jingwan gradually became more humane to some extent. In the past, she was ruled by reason most of the time. But after marrying Li Hongyuan, there weren't many times when she needed to be calm and rational. Wanwan made it. Even if it's poison, your husband will still eat it. Li Hongyuan's sweet words seemed to be a little ineffective at this moment, because Jingwan's face immediately fell. So, it's because the person who made it makes you think it tastes good, and not because it itself makes you think it's good? So the things I make are still difficult for people to eat. Li Hongyuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His little sweetheart was actually fussing about this. She was grasping the wrong point. Li Hongyuan took the skewer from her hand, and pinched her face. It's not that bad. In fact, the taste is really good. If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself. With that said, he took the skewer and ate it unhurriedly. Jingwan slapped his hand away. You're not allowed to pinch my face. I'm not a child. I'll try it. After tasting it, Jingwan was satisfied and unceremoniously stuffed everything in her hand to Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan's eyes flashed with ridicule. Say that you're not a child, don't be so childish, ah. His wife was spoiled to the point that her mind regressed. As a man who pampered his wife, this was definitely a great achievement, ah. People who were used to the two people getting along with each other were used to this scene. For people who met for the first time, such as Yu Zhongqing and Li Suyan, although they still had a paralyzed face, their hearts were somewhat shocked. This was poles apart from the Jin Qinhuang they were familiar with. If Jin Qinhuang's temperament had always been like this, other things were hard to say, but one thing was certain. That was, the number of women in Jin Qinhuang Fu was definitely not in the minority. Jingwan reached out and secretly poked Li Hongyuan's arm, giving the two-door gods a meaningful look. Anyone who could distract his wife, in Li Hongyuan's eyes, was an enemy. His eyes darkened. But it wasn't good to continue looking for nourishment from his wife. Playing around with trivial matters, sooner or later his wife would no longer fall for this. Then, he could only let others bear it. Turning back, you guys also eat a bit. The two men inexplicably felt a little chilly. Many thanks to Wang Ye. Originally, there were several barbecue grills prepared. Now, it was enough for the servant girls to use one just to serve Jingwan and Li Hongyuan. Barbecue was in essence just for fun. Now perhaps it could add a novelty. Everyone's appetite was not bad. Li Hongyuan also let people get good wine. The taste was really wonderful. With outsiders present, Li Hongyuan didn't pull Jingwan to be lovey-dovey. He lazily half-leaned on the recliner and let Yu Zhongqing and Li Suyan sit down casually chatting. There was a lot of cooked food on the tray at hand. The skewers left behind would be quickly taken away, but they didn't know how much had been eaten. Li Suyan, how many black-clothed guards did you bring out? They were still chatting a moment ago, but Li Hongyuan's last sentence was abrupt. Li Suyan subconsciously wanted to blurt out, but inadvertently saw Li Hongyuan's lazy but ruthless eyes looking at him from the corner of his eyes. He paused, answering Wangya 100 people. Yu Zhongqing's hand movements paused. That day in the imperial court, the emperor clearly said 50 people, but the actual number was doubled. What was the meaning of this? Speaking of the black-clothed guards, Li Suyan brought 50 people on the surface, but this was only half of the number. Even Yu Zhongqing didn't see all of them. Li Hongyuan's expression didn't change at all. He just divided the extra 50 people into groups of 5 and sent them to 10 different places. It was obviously an important matter, but he seemed to be saying that the weather was good today. Li Suyan's task was to assist Li Hongyuan. He didn't need to have his own ideas. He only needed to carry out orders unconditionally. Yes, at this moment, people who were hiding in unknown places left their groups to carry out their tasks. These people were good at reconnaissance, arrest, and interrogation. This time, they were secretly collecting information. However, there must be something in common, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Even if it was difficult, they had to do their best to complete it, and it had to be perfect. After completing such a small task, Li Hongyuan seemed to have lost his interest. After all, it wasn't mealtime yet, so his stomach wasn't that hungry. These people naturally didn't have the habit of overeating. They just continued to drink, and occasionally ate a little as a side dish. They didn't want to eat here, but the people on the surrounding boats were in pain. The smell was too fragrant, but they could only smell it. They couldn't see nor eat it. It couldn't be helped. The King of Hell's boat was the tallest and largest. The closer they were, the less they could see the situation on the deck. Of course, it wasn't only the people who were attracted by it. Seeing that they were about to arrive at Kaming Prefecture, more and more boats gathered on the canal. Kaming Prefecture was a very important prefecture before entering Jiangnan. At the same time, it was also the capital of Tongzhou County. It could be said that it had already entered the boundary of the wooden target this time. This place wasn't within the scope of investigation. However, if Li Hongyuan went crazy and started from here, he wouldn't be able to clean himself up. Therefore, this place was not only prosperous, but also on the main road. It was developed not only by water, but also by land. It was obvious that it was absolutely not to be underestimated. Master, there's still an hour before we reach Kaming Prefecture. And he stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Stop the fleet at Kaming Ferry. After lunch, wait for me to take a nap before disembarking." Li Hongyuan said in a light voice, "Yes." For the many officials waiting at the ferry to light candles, it would be 2.5 hours later. Those were officials of second rank and below. What governor, administrator, inspector, and so on. Knowing that the prince had graced them with his presence, and because of his identity as the imperial envoy, no one dared to neglect him. Moreover, because this time's matter was too big, they had already received the news long ago. And this imperial envoy was naturally the first person they paid attention to. There was no need for them to inquire. The capital had already sent a list of all the key personnel over at top speed. Their temperament and preferences were all explained. Among these people, there were naturally people they were familiar with. These were all not important. As the imperial envoy, Jin Qinhuang had a few pages of introduction to him. Seeing this lord's great achievements, how many people's foreheads were dripping with sweat. And those who were familiar with Li Hongyuan were almost paralyzed. Then, after confirming that they didn't commit any crimes, they slightly breathed a sigh of relief. But they were still on tenterhooks. This person had never played his cards according to common sense. Who knew whether or not he would become the fish in the moat that would be affected by the fire at the city gates. All kinds of explanations were exchanged. No matter if they were political enemies or allies, they all complained incessantly. Why did His Majesty pick this person? Was there no one else in the imperial court? And for those who didn't know, the more they understood, the more they felt that it was strange. Was that a ferocious bird or beast? Or did he have 3 heads and 6 arms? They hadn't seen him yet. But the people who usually had the virtue of being the Lord and lousy were so scared that they trembled like quails. Without a doubt, their own legs and stomachs also trembled. The reputation of the living king of hell was simply demonized. So much so that for a time they neglected the part about Jingwan. Of course, it could also be that Jingwan was a female. Even if they wanted to use roundabout tactics, it wasn't good to write down her temperament and preferences too clearly. Otherwise, if the living king of hell knew about it, they would be torn apart one by one. In addition, to a certain extent, Jin Qinhuang also specialized in dealing with debauches. Because no matter what kind of debauchee you were, in front of him, you had to lie down on your stomach. Based on this point, these Darren didn't lack in exhortations to their own evil creatures. During Jin Qinhuang's stay they must not cause trouble. It would be best if they didn't even leave the door. Otherwise, if they offended him, no one could save them. It must be known that the second generation of these places were even more lawless than the princes in the capital. They didn't care much about their own father's words. Only when they really fell into Li Hongyuan's hands. Each and every one of them regretted, until their intestines turned green. Only then did they know that compared to this one, they were actually nothing. Because the momentum was too great, the entire ferry was cleared. The common people of Kai Ming Fu all knew that something big was going to happen today, and stood on their tiptoes from afar, craning their necks to watch. When the fleet arrived at the ferry, there was no need for any special explanation. All the officials knew that the main character had arrived. At first glance, they knew that it wasn't a ship that ordinary people could use. 3 floors luxurious and imposing. The edge of each deck was densely packed with majestic guards armed with swords. Just by feeling, they knew that those weren't just for show, but had really seen blood. They couldn't help but sigh with emotion that this was indeed Jin Qinhuang's style. Obviously, they had never seen Jin Qinhuang's style before. The ships at the side spontaneously and consciously moved to the sides, emptying the middle position. The big ship steadily stopped. As early as when they saw the fleet, the officials on the shore quieted down. As they approached, they lowered their eyes and bowed their heads, putting on a respectful attitude, respectfully welcoming Jin Qinhuang's arrival. It was just that it had been almost a quarter of an hour, and they still didn't see the slightest movement. They couldn't help but quietly raise their heads. As a result, the same as when the ship stopped, it was still the same now. They couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. What was going on? This main ship didn't move. The other ships naturally didn't dare to act blindly without thinking, and they were also at a loss. This wait lasted for 2 seconds. These people were also pampered, adding that it was already lunchtime. Their bodies seemed to be somewhat swaying. In the end, they couldn't bear it, and prepared to send someone to ask. The person who received the order secretly cursed his bad luck, but he had to bite the bullet. The people on the ship couldn't be provoked, and these people also couldn't be provoked. However, when that person dawdled forward, there was a movement on the ship first. The wooden plank to disembark the ship was quickly set up. A man who was missing an important part walked down, and stood arrogantly in front of everyone. His voice was quite sharp as he opened. Darren, Master is currently having lunch, and will take a nap later. Master's intention is, if you are impatient from waiting, you can go back first. This kind of trivial matter, Master said that he won't bother with you. Finished speaking, Mu Gonggong turned and walked away. These people's faces were called wonderful. This was clearly giving them a show of strength. Even if he was a Qinhuang, wasn't this a bit too much? Did he really think that they didn't have a temper? Well, so what if they had a temper? Didn't they still have to endure it? Go back? This kind of face talk was over. If the main character didn't come down, they could only wait with an empty stomach. Castrated dog. Someone cursed at Mu Gonggong's back. Since they couldn't scold Jin Qinhuang, they naturally took their anger out on others. Mu Gonggong's attitude was really infuriating. He was just a lackey, yet he dared to speak to them like this. It was simply, even if he was a dog, he was Jin Qinhuang's dog. He was a dog that relied on its master's power. You people who were usually high up in the air, other than using your glib tongue, really couldn't do anything to him. Mu Gonggong was ordered to draw hatred. People like him had a master by his side. Without a master's order, they really didn't dare to act casually. Speaking of which, it wasn't only them who suffered. The people accompanying them were also the same. Previously, their sense of smell had been ruthlessly poisoned. They swallowed their saliva as they endured. They thought that when they reached Kai Ming Fu and got off the ship, they would have a good meal and soon forget this kind of torture. As a result, even though they were clearly on the shore, they still had to continue squatting on the ship to gnaw on dry food and drink plain water. At the same time, they couldn't help but think about how delicious Jin Qinhuang's table was. The more they thought about it, the harder it was to swallow. They clearly wanted to restrain themselves from thinking about it, but they couldn't do it. Was there still justice? Jing Wan, who was sitting next to Li Hongyuan, also thought the same. You say, how bored were you to do this kind of thing? Li Hongyuan picked up some food and placed it in her bowl. Unconcerned, he opened his mouth. Presumably, along the way, the reputation of the living king of hell will become more and more well known. Naturally, I have to let them know that this is not just in name, but also in reality. Let them be tense at all times. If they relax, it will be more difficult for me. Could he not use this kind of tone and say such infuriating words? At this time, Jingwan also didn't get involved. What she should do on a normal day, she should do it now. Her purpose for coming out was to play. Li Hongyuan did what he said. He hugged Jingwan and took a comfortable afternoon nap. Only then did he give the order to prepare to get off the ship. And the officials on the shore even felt that they were about to ascend to heaven. Of course, this was definitely an illusion. They finally received the confirmation that Jin Qinhuang was going to get off the ship. The people on the other ships wiped their foreheads and quickly got off the ship in an orderly manner. They stood at the side of the empty space and respectfully welcomed him together with the others. The imperial bodyguards on the big ship were divided into 2 rows. They calmly and silently got off the ship and lined up on the shore on both sides. The long-awaited Jin Qinhuang finally appeared. Although it was disrespectful to look at him directly at this time. But with so many people, probably no one would notice if they secretly took a glance. But there were too many people who thought this way. Therefore, in Li Hongyuan's eyes, all the officials of Kai Ming Fu appeared shifty. Li Hongyuan was dissatisfied with these people. And because of that glance, these people were shocked. They seemed to have just remembered that the information also said that Jin Qinhuang was the most handsome man in the capital. Almost all of them ignored this, although the faces of the officials of Qi Yuan also needed to be proper. But this was enough. A big man, what face did they care about? However, after seeing Li Hongyuan, they finally understood what the concept of the most handsome man was, and how graceful he was. Although he wasn't wearing the imperial robe of a prince, he wore a jade crown on his head, a black brocade robe with dark patterns and golden thread at the edges. His handsome face, cold eyes, noble, dignified and aloof. This kind of person occupied all the glory and favor. He was born to be in a superior position. Even if they knew of his fierce reputation, it was difficult to have a bad impression at the first moment. But the woman beside him was only a step behind. She was also dignified and unruffled. Standing beside Jin Qinhuang, she also appeared peerless. Without a doubt, she should be Jin Qinhuang Fei. In such a solemn occasion, Jin Qinhuang brought her with him. It could be seen that he only valued her. He slightly regretted that he didn't look carefully at the information about this Wang Fei. Li Hongyuan brought Jingwan and slowly walked down. Behind them were Yu Zhongqing and Li Suyan. Behind them were his personal bodyguards and personal maidservants. Ignoring the carriage prepared by the officials of Kai Ming Fu, in just a moment, his luxurious caravan was moved down from the ship and put on the horse harness. Before getting on the carriage, Li Hongyuan looked at the 4 horses with disdain. as if he was looking at the most useless waste. Using these things to send Ben Wang off. They really give Ben Wang face. The governor and the inspector governor standing at the front couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. These 4 horses were carefully selected. Although they weren't the best horses in Kai Ming Fu, but the 4 horses were very similar in size, height and hair. At first glance, one would even think that they were the same horse. There was nothing more suitable than them to pull the carriage. It must be known that as their owner, when he knew that they were used to pull the carriage, his heart ached terribly. But now they were disliked to this extent. If one really wanted to use the best BMW, it was absolutely impossible to find 4 of the same kind. Moreover, who would waste God's gift by using a BMW to pull the carriage? Wang Ye, this concubine, quite likes these 4 horses. I can also see Darren's sincerity and effort. Jingwan smiled. Li Hongyuan's expression softened a little. Since Wang Fei says so, then forget it. Waiting for the 2 to sit down, Yu Zhongqing and Li Suyan rode their horses, one on the left and one on the right of the carriage. In front, there were 2 teams of guards leading the way, and behind them, there were even more guards. The other officials either mounted their horses or got on the carriage, scrambling to keep up. The temporary residence prepared for Li Hongyuan was the governor's luxurious courtyard. This place was envied by many people, and once again, Jin Qinhuang disliked it. The huge amount of luggage they had brought with them was moved down nimbly, and the courtyard was once again changed into a brand new one. Before, they thought that Jin Qinhuang was purely looking for trouble, but now, they maintained their silence. In terms of luxury, in terms of fastidiousness, who could compare to Jin Qinhuang? Sure enough, in this aspect, no one should think of bribing him. Even if you took out all your belongings, in his eyes, it was nothing. Such beauties? Thinking of Jin Qinhuang Fei, who had already gone to the inner courtyard. Thinking of the beauties that Jin Qinhuang kept that were comparable to the emperor's harem, as the information said, it really seemed unlikely. One by one, they wanted to worm their way into being friends with him. But Li Hongyuan was not in the mood, and did not allow them to say anything. Helpless, they could only take a step back, indicating that there would be a banquet in the evening to welcome Jin Qinhuang. Li Hongyuan sneered. Do you all have a lot of money? Then can Ben Wang start investigating from you? Why does Wang Ye say this? Sure enough, after looking at him a few more times, his nature was even more frightening. Li Hongyuan coolly looked at the governor. This broken courtyard. Ben Wang does not fancy it, but the cost of construction probably exceeds your net worth, right? You set up a banquet. What good things can you take out to entertain Ben Wang? Ben Wang is not in the mood to care about you. Scram as far as you can. If I don't summon you, don't come in front of Ben Wang. Since he had already said this, who would dare to continue to stay? Outside the door, you look at me. I look at you. Their mouths seemed to be filled with coptis. Their hearts were also beating wildly, hard to calm down. Living king of hell, sure enough, there was only a wrong name, but not a wrong nickname. This kind of person, how to please? Could it be that they had to show that their sleeves were clean, just and upright? This person was also not someone who would fall for this. After all, at the place where Jin Qinhuang had stayed before, the officials learned their lesson and acted in the opposite way, pretending to be poor. As a result, Jin Qinhuang directly confiscated their property, and if it was more than what they said, they were charged with the crime of deceiving the monarch. Without saying anything, they were directly sent to prison. After that, if they did their best to serve him, they could relax a bit. Jin Qinhuang Fei. It seems that this is the only way. If Jin Qinhuang Fei does not meet, or if Jin Qinhuang does not allow them to meet, what should we do? We can't just sit and wait for death. But if there is a possibility, we have to try. He should not stay here for too long. After all, those students cannot be delayed. Jin Qinhuang is not an ordinary person. Naturally, we cannot infer with common sense. Who knows if he will make an example out of Ming Fu, killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Therefore, the more they spoke, the more uncertain they became. Have you all cleaned up your hands? The governor asked half obscurely. Someone smiled bitterly. How could it be so easy? Some things were not so easy to clean up after they had been done. As long as they investigated to the end, they would definitely be exposed. Jin Qinhuang had a black-clothed guard by his side, and there were a bunch of capable people. Some might help you hide it, but more people wanted to turn your background inside out. Therefore, it really could not withstand a serious investigation. We have to stabilize ourselves. We can't be his target. It is important to think of a way to send this god of plague away. If we can't. The governor's face showed a ruthless expression. Everyone's heart shivered. Unless it was a last resort, no one wanted to take this step. Everyone disperse. The governor waved his hand and left first. The others left one after another. In the other courtyard, Li Hongyuan gently looked at the table, as if thinking about something. Master, the matter has been settled. Ani came in from outside and reported respectfully. Li Hongyuan nodded his head indifferently. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653470. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bikago mobile reading website, mbicken.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.